Hayawi huwa kinyang'anyiro cha kombe la dunia nchini Qatar cha nanga Novemba 20 hadi Disemba 18, huku timu 32 zikiwania taji. KBC Channel 1 inakupa fursa ya kutizama mbashara kipute hicho kutoka Qatar nyumbani kwako. Runinga ya KBC Channel 1 inakukaribisha kwenye kipindi cha Dunda Qatar.
Na kumbuka kwamba baba, alama ya reli ni Dunda Qatar.
Na tunakuja nyumbani pale mtaani pale ambapo upo wewe mwenyewe.
Huku ukijishindia zawadi chungu nzima.
Hapa kumejaa vitu kocho.
Jongea. Shabiki kwenye Dunda Qatar.
Ukitazama unashinda.
KBC Channel 1, wenzio wa dhati michezoni.
We can get Kalasha to the prestige that is the Oscars.
But what Kalasha is doing, and it's been 12 years now running, is beyond just a passion project.
And broadcasters, wherever they are, I'm also calling on them to be able to share Kenyan stories.
Thank you so much for this platform.
I do for the culture, Mimi.
Shin City was an actual city, or rather an artistic representation of one.
I want to build something for my people.
Few hours into his performance, Femi One, in her usual colorful self, rocked up on stage and absolutely wrecked their performance off properly. Pamoja Dancing Group, in conjunction with Eric Langet, a lifetime coach and a dancing choreographer for people living with disability all the way from France, organized a special event.
With disability, ama mtu aliye na maumbile tofauti, kwanza ni akubali alivyo.
Aish venye ina slap kishash.
November, you're tuned to KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya, and we were just getting underway with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours. I'm Regina Manyara. Now, the government will engage public-private partnerships for construction of new roads to avoid escalating pending bills and pending works that have accumulated to 135 billion shillings. Roads and Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen further says 3.5 billion shillings has been earmarked for the rehabilitation of Mombasa Road that was affected by the construction of the expressway.
To make sure that for us to be able to construct the roads and complete the road projects that have already been committed, we must get proper structure of funding to deal. The actually most urgent issue right now, which all the contractors across the country are asking, is can they go to Christmas having at least received some payment for the infrastructure work, and that is what we are working around the clock. I hope we can be able to give them something soonest. We need to look at the expressway in depth. The good, the positives and the negatives, learn from it, and attract other investors to invest in public-private partnership program on the roads. And Mombasa, we are looking at Mombasa and Nairobi as the key areas where already proposals are given on the Nyali Bridge. There are also proposals given on having a very mega bridge on Likoni, what's called Likoni Bridge.
To some bit of sports, 16-year-old golfer Andrew Wahome is among the shortlisted candidates battling it out for the 2022 Sawyer Most Promising Award. With him on the list are Reynold Kipkorir, Felix Kiptarus, Kamveer Singh, David Katana, Joshua Amunga and Joshua Clive. Wahome is on the shortlist after being fitted as a golfer of the year in Pretoria, South Africa in October. This saw him cap an impressive season in 2022 that secured him a place in the national team. At only 16 years, that's rubbing shoulders with the experienced lot. Athletics prodigy Reynold Kipkorir was nominated after claiming the World Under-20 1500 meters title with a dominant display at the World Junior Championship in Cali. On the other hand, Felix Kiptarus' career also won a silver medal on the men's 3,000 meters in Cali. Kamveer Singh is in the lineup after being declared the most improved in the Bambino class. And the 19th edition of the Sawyer Gala will be held in January on the 20th at the KICC, Nairobi. What can we say when it comes to the Sawyer Awards? May the best man or woman carry the day. But that date is set for 20th January 2023. Now bringing back home on the 13th of December as we speak. The Qatari Games are ongoing, and after yesterday's display of brilliance from Brazil there, the Samba boys carried the day, scoring 4 against a solitary goal from the opposing team. We're not even mentioning the team there because social media is rife with some criticism on how Brazil was actually celebrating their goals and such, but nonetheless they sailed through. The question is, will Brazil be meeting its nemesis Argentina in this World Cup, the Qatari World Cup? So tonight from 6 p.m, Morocco, the only African team right now that everyone is pegging their hopes on after the rest were bundled out of the games, is going to be squaring out with the North American team, and that is Spain at 6 p.m. Then we have Portugal, led by Cristiano Ronaldo, a man we refer to as the greatest of all time. He will be seeking to replicate what his fellow, world-renowned players, including Messi and Mbappe, did in their various respective games there to sail through. And they're going to be squaring it out with Switzerland, and this is not a walkover. Anyone who's looking at the playing team between Portugal and Switzerland would know that Switzerland also has some heavyweights there, and that match is going to be played at 10 p.m. Remember, World Cup equal KBC. But that's a wrap in as far as news stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours are concerned. You can log in to our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. I hand you over to Victor.
Very well. On that note, Regina, I think I'll be going with Spain. Portugal versus Switzerland. Yes, you said it's not going to be a walk in the park, but let's give it to Portugal. I think Ronaldo is out to prove a point.
I agree.
Ronaldo is out to prove a point. The way you said Mbappe and Messi so far are shining. It's only Ronaldo who's not put his name properly at the tally. So he's also out to make some magic there. So your prediction is that Spain will carry the day at 6 p.m. as they carried out with Morocco. Spain. Portugal, Switzerland, you want to give it to Portugal. Exactly. 10 p.m. My prediction for Spain, Morocco, for those who know, over 1.5, yes. Portugal and Switzerland, again, over 1.5. I don't know who's going to win. But yes. Okay, KBC Channel 1 is going to be broadcasting the match at 6 p.m. So save the date, clear your schedule, and ensure you're home to watch or in a place that is broadcasting this game well. And let's watch if Morocco is going to carry the day representing Africa there versus a North American team there, that is Spain. That is going to be an electrifying game. I want to be the devil's advocate in this particular situation and say that, oh well, Africa is our business, but I would want to say, well, let me go with Morocco. Let me go with Morocco for this. But Portugal, Switzerland,
Let's wait and see. See you, Victor.
All right. Thank you so much, Regina. Okay, now let's take a look at what we have on our local dailies here. Let me start with the Star newspaper. On the front page, why Cherera and Nyang'aya opted to resign. Why Cherera and Nyang'aya opted to resign. One factor is the consequences of being found guilty by the tribunal. If found guilty, they will be barred from holding public office. That is also the front page of the Star newspaper. On that Standard, Raila seeks to ride on Ruto's quote-unquote failed pledges. Raila seeks to ride on Ruto's failed pledges as a mere leader to lead a national conversation on governance and performance of the president and his cabinet during several rallies he has called, a move that has thrust him into limelight, but government officials say that he wants to cause chaos and roll back economic gains. How will that pan out? Let's wait and see what will happen tomorrow. Guilty Oswago to pay for IEBC ballot scandal that happened in 2013. And again, there is a story of a family which was murdered in the US, and they were a model family everyone admired according to their kin. Relatives of a mother of two who was killed alongside her two daughters by her husband say that they are yet to come to terms with the murders as their relatives lived their lives to the full in America. Okay, to the Daily Nation. Why besieged IEBC duo quit? Why besieged IEBC duo quit? Tribunal informs the 4 of status conference this Friday. There has been several calls for them to be investigated even after they've quit. Will that take place? Okay. So we have got Commissioner Justice Nyang'aya, who so far has resigned, and Commission's Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera. We only have Commissioner Francis Wanderi and Commissioner Irene Masit, who are yet to throw in the towel. Gachagua, Kenyans to get all tenders under 1 billion shillings. There you have it. And finally, public schools are the best in CBC practicals. Public schools are the best in CBC practicals. Something that I know Engineer Crispus is happy about. We talked about it here last week about CBC, and Engineer is back. Let me start with you before I go to the People Daily. Just start it, and but they welcome, gentlemen. I have got Peter Mbai here, Dr. Peter Mbai, who is former legislator, Nakuru County Assembly, right? Yes. Welcome to the program, and Engineer Crispus Wathimba, who is also joining me once again on set. Let me start with you, Engineer. We discussed this last week.
Yes.
And here we are. Public schools are the best in CBC practicals.
What I'll tell you is that from the experience I had with the CBC as a parent, is that well, CBC curriculum in terms of the resources and the way it was supposed to be approached, the public school had an advantage because remember the government would provide them with the resources that they required to do some of the projects that they were required to do.
Yes.
Whereas in the private schools, some practitioners took advantage to really make money out of it and therefore did not focus more on the quality of the practical themselves, but more on just an opportunity to say, parents buy this, do this and all that. But in public schools, they were more focused on what they wanted the outcome of the program to be. And therefore, the public schools, one way or another, got the best out of this deal. But not all the public schools. I happened to have the opportunity to run for Senate in Nakuru County in this election, and I visited some of the wards. Some of the public schools were doing very badly in terms of resources.
Right.
And therefore, that image, that report may be just skewed to some schools maybe in urban areas or in some...
but generally, even in the first examination results, public schools tend to perform somehow better.
Given that the public infrastructure is there for them.
Yes.
And the way the free education has come to mature over the maybe 20 years since Kibaki began it in 2002, is that the public schools, especially the primary level, the teachers are more averse or more informed on what is required of them in terms of providing public education.
Okay.
Whereas in the private sector, they catch up. So that catch up brings challenges.
Yes.
And then also the element of people trying to make money out of it in terms of the private schools, that also dilutes the quality of education that private schools may be able to offer in terms of now what we are looking at CBC.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And Dr. now to bring you on board, this perhaps will only just change the whole scenario that if you go to a private school, you're better off as compared to public primary school. Most of us went to public schools, and our parents will say there's no difference. I mean, teachers are all the same. They go through the same training. It's all about you.
Yes.
But when you look at the kind of resources that engineer is talking about, teachers in public primary school perhaps appear to be more assertive, and they have got a performance contract by the government that you must deliver.
For me, and I want to say a very good morning to viewers. It's meant education is supposed to be an equalizer.
Right.
In the past, there has been this tendency that private schools are better. But over time, it has come to be discovered education is everywhere, and teachers, even in public schools, are equally good. And that is how it ought to be. Actually, it was a mistake to try to elevate that, because there are no children of a lesser God in Kenya. So there has been that tendency that, look, if you have a bit of money, you can send your kid to a private school. It's they're going to make better.
Yes.
It's meant to be, because we are not supposed to have a society of two worlds. So what is happening here is actually to prove that, that yes, indeed, any kid can go to every school and make it in life, despite the fact that sometimes, listen, it's not everybody, every parent would wish, that world wish for private, but sometimes the resources are not there. So we want to say, yes, can we make sure, can we have a system that encourages education to be an equalizer between public and private schools? That is how actually that's how it ought to be. If ever there was a situation where people felt, or everybody felt like private schools were better, that was not the norm. That was not how it's supposed to be. Let kids go. Actually, some of the brightest kids go to public primary, and especially now with the reforms in the CBC. And I want to thank the president. I mean, Victor, let's go. Let's be realistic. All along, we knew there was CBC. We knew it was something which we thought like it was good, but there were a lot of questions from the word go. Look at the hurried way the minister was kicked out of the ministry. I mean, Mohammed, when she said, my proposal is, can we hold it? She was kicked out. Okay, let me use those words. Immediately, there has been like a cry and who. Now, all along we were waiting for this. Yes, no, we have not much problem, because again, we cannot be the only ones in the world who doesn't have a competency-based curriculum. However, the how is everything. The how was everything. And the biggest decision that ever, let me tell you, the biggest thing that was ever weighted in this report was actually the issue of domiciling grade 7. That was a major issue.
Let's hold it there. Let me take a look at what's on the People Daily, then we'll come back for more. All right, Ruto MPs demand purge of Raila men. Ruto MPs demand purge of Raila men. Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting resolved that civil servants accused of campaigning for the Azimio presidential candidate in the last general election be shown the door. One of the MPs who was vocal about it during yesterday's was Kagombe, who is the MP, said that some of the commissioners were colluding with the Azimio leader, and now they want them to be transferred or an action taken against them. That is as far as the People Daily is concerned. Now let's come back to the main topic here, gentlemen. The whole story about the Cherera 4. I mean, look at all the three newspapers. Raila 6 ride on Ruto's pledges. We have got why besieged, IEBC duo quit, and why Cherera and Nyangai opted to resign. It's not something that perhaps Kenyans are waking up to as a shocker. Let me start with you, engineer. The Cherera 4, quote unquote, but the 4 commissioners, finally, they're throwing in the towel one by one. We have got Commissioner Justus Nyang'aya going, and we have got Vice Chairperson, that is Juliana Cherera, also going. But when you listen to the legislators, most so was in Gishu, the Deputy Speaker, Gladys Sholei, saying that they still have to face the tribunal.
Well, it's important that we hold public servants to account. When we don't have the opportunity to hold people to account, it sends a wrong message. And therefore, it's important that the tribunal progresses and everybody is able to answer important questions that Kenyans have. We all know that this past election, there were doubts that were cast on the character and behavior of these commissioners as far as the determination of the final outcome of this election. And therefore, when they came to the public and they said, we don't want to own these results, there must be reason as to why. They have never had the opportunity to demonstrate why. And then after the disowning this election, we saw the fracas that happened at Bomas. Kenyans deserve an answer because we spent a lot of money. Kenyan's elections are the most expensive. And if we continue not answering these questions, we will invest in a trust deficit which we'll never be able to understand as to why it is growing big. And therefore, if we are going to cure the issue of the trust deficit we have with this election of ours, can we hold account to those people we give the responsibility? These are commissioners who are charged with the responsibility of delivering a transparent, free and fair elections. When 4 of them disagreed or disowned the outcome, then there are questions as to why. When there were issues of people being controlled by third forces, we need to understand who are these third forces, so that in the next election, the power cannot be taken from the people. You remember, it is us who go to election. We subject ourselves to an election process. We submit ourselves and give power to someone. And if that power is not given to the right person that Kenyans want, it's very wrong. So if there was any attempt to wrestle that power from the rightful person, then people should be held to account.
The tribunal will be formed either way.
Yes.
And the fear, perhaps, is that there is a predetermined kind of a conclusion out of this, that they'll be investigated and if found guilty, then the outcome would be 1 or 2.
Well, if you saw the Azimio legislature walk out of the JLAC committee, then that gives room for the outcome to be predetermined, because only one side will speak, only one side will say something. So therefore, even if this tribunal happens and they don't present themselves, definitely the outcome will look skewed. So for me, I would encourage them to participate in this process to the very end and give their be given an opportunity to be heard, so that they can be able to say why they did not own this election, why they felt they disagree with the chairman, and why they feel the chairman was not being a good referee in this process.
Yes.
So by them now walking away or not showing up, it will always give a skewed outcome. And that's the unfortunate thing.
Your statement sounds a bit innocent to them. Let them face the tribunal, but the outcome, you know, we all know if they're found guilty of the electoral offense, whatever they call it, and, you know, to subvert the will of the people. The outcome, perhaps that is what they're afraid of.
There are 2 issues here.
And to hold public office.
Yes.
Right.
There are 2 issues here, Victor. One, these people are hung together, or rather, they have to do this thing. If one of them don't resign, even one, the tribunal moves on. If all of them resign, the end of tribunal ends there, because the tribunal was formed to investigate the conduct. Now, what is likely to happen from a government analysis point of view is that if the government would wish to move this further, they are likely to turn, because if they resign, remember, if they resign, the tribunal cannot, because it was meant to investigate their conduct. They are likely to turn it into an inquiry to find out exactly what happened around there if they want to push it further. Remember, however, if only one do not resign, the tribunal moves on, and even the others will be implicated. Even if 3 resign, or 2 resign and 2 do not, and they move on. Now, what are the consequences? Very, very simple. Please, Victor, my advice is this: go only to that tribunal if you're very sure it will verdict you. Because if it doesn't, one of the things that's likely to come out is preferring of criminal charges for all of them. So even if only one faces the tribunal, it will apply to all of them. So it's all about conscience. This thing is all about what do you think? How much are you willing to give out? How much are you willing to give to the people? Now listen, the biggest complication about these commissioners, Victor, is the fact that they were quote unquote indicted by the Supreme Court. Now listen, when we saw the split screen, I mean, as lay people, we didn't know exactly what happened within a split of a second. One time Cherera is announcing results, and the other one. So, honestly speaking, because we like being objective, right? But we said, okay, fine. Is this what happened? Fine. They were given a day in court before the Supreme Court, and everybody went there with their lawyers. And finally, the judgment was out that indeed the results were okay. Chebukati was fine, and these other people. So everybody knew this. Therefore, they must have been playing with some political forces. And so, if that is so, that's why they couldn't. The members couldn't stay in jail. And by the way, who chased them? Nobody. They chose not to attend. They chose not to attend. They sent their lawyers.
Yes.
They were supposed. Look here. If they had something to prove or demonstrate, they should have taken the earliest opportunity at JLAC to go and defend themselves. Look. But the fact that they kept away, Kenyans are asking, okay, the guilty are always afraid. Maybe that's why they ran away. So if they think that they don't have a case, the best way is to resign, let the matter settle, and hope that the government will not pursue them further to form an inquiry, because when an inquiry is formed, they'll be again asked to come and testify on what happened. But what's the overall of this thing, Victor? And because that's very important, baggage in, baggage out. What happened?
Yes.
The issue of controlling the selection panel. Remember the laws that were passed at night in Parliament one day, giving powers to 4 MPs from ODM and Jubilee, that the ones 4 out of 7, they were the ones who controlled who is going to be the commissioners.
Yes.
That's how the 4 came in, and that's why we are saying we want what we call independent institutions.
That brings me back to my question, because now where's the independence of these independent commissions? You get what you get. We talked about here sometimes in the past, because we have got independent commissions here, but the most affected is the electoral commission in the country, the Isakasan, the Kivuitu commission. We have now this one. We all know what happened to Rosalind Akombe, who had to flee to the UK to run away from this. But my question to you, engineer, is that at the end of the day, when you look at the whole composition, one person remains, the entire team is implicated. So now what happens? There's a protest tomorrow, a consultative forum by Raila Odinga. So now what happens? What if the remaining 2 resigns today? Okay? Take a break. Let's take a break.
Thank you.
When you come back, you'll have time to answer that.
Thank you.
Wow, we are still starting. We're just starting. If you are joining us, this is Good Morning Kenya, and the show is People and Politics. We'll be right back shortly.
Luke Shaw has it, brings it into the center. And Hurricane has had an easy game. Well, they were going to get the advantage here, but the referee has the authority to stop the game and issues a cut to Kalidou Koulibaly for that tackle on Hurricane. That was totally unwarranted. Hurricane was way out with the possession, had already given the ball out as well. He's been playing very reservedly as well, Hurricane. He's not really making, you know, the big runs and everything else. He's just spraying the balls easily and getting to the position that he wants to.
Well, Bernard, when you're leading by 3-0 and you don't see like...
ilayska ummadda
I'm back now. With me today still have Dr. Bai, who is a governance leadership and governance expert and consultant, as well as engineer Crispus Wathimba. So Crispus, coming to you, ask a question. So now what happens? The 4 commissioners, we don't know what will happen today. Either perhaps maybe Wanderi and Masit would also decide and say, we follow suit. So now what happens to the tribunal?
Well, 2 scenarios. Probably in the next 2-3 days, the other 2 commissioners might resign. So there will be, the mandate will fail to perform its role, because it was supposed to investigate the conduct and recommend the removal of these people or make other recommendations. So if there's nobody to recommend removal of, there's no need for wasting public money to do a tribunal. What most likely may happen is that the country might move on and form the next IEBC commission and say bygones are bygone. But probably a Kenyan of public interest like me may demand a commission of inquiry as to what happened during the last...
Formed by who?
It can be instituted by parliament, it can be instituted by public, it can be, even the government itself can exercise its motion and form that commission. But I don't see the will right now or the appetite by government at the moment to go to such a route. What most likely the government wants is to have an electoral commission ready come February next year to be able to prepare for the next general election, so that they can have at least 4 years to invest in terms of the infrastructure, personnel, and changing the character and DNA of the commission. Because the challenges of IEBC are not just about the commissioner. It's how the way IEBC is structured.
Yes.
We cannot be changing commissioners every 4 years or 5 years, but we are not interrogating the secretariat, the management structure, the way the operations of IEBC is done, because that's where the problem is coming on to be. It's not just about these 4 or 5 men or 7 men at the very top. What about the management? What about the secretariat? What about the personnel? What about the operations? We need to start interrogating. Maybe there is need to reorganize the whole IEBC framework.
But perhaps what would be of great interest is the outcome. Would it be objective?
Well, I would say 2027 election might be already determined, in the sense that the hustler nation, as we continue, you can see the opposition is losing its majority or its numbers as time goes by. So the likelihood of this administration losing the election of 2027 is very low. I don't think they are betting on their re-election on IEBC infrastructure. They are betting on the people coming in numbers to vote. So therefore what they need is an IEBC that can mobilize as many people to get registered, as many people to participate in the next election, so that they can be able to have a clear majority win. But what is important for us as a country, how can we bring down the cost of doing an election? Why do we have to spend so much money to do an election? Why do we have to take the country to a very tense moment that even our economy stalls during an election period? Those are important conversations we need to have, so that we can know these are the issues that come about that cause this country to go to such a extreme position that even the economic engines fail to move on, and it costs us so much, because we are right now dealing with drought and hunger. Yet 2 months ago we were spending billions a day in an election. We are now begging for money for food, yet 3 months ago we were spending over 2 billion a day in an election. That is contradiction of the highest order. So therefore we need to look at a scenario where even if we call an election today, it does not cost as much as it did in the other previous election. What are those issues that we need to invest in?
So perhaps proposal should be put in place, because when you talk about electoral commission reforms in the electoral commission, it's been an issue over time.
Yes, on this whole issue, let me just say just 2 things about the whole issue about IEBC, electoral commission and management. One, well, talking about 27 right now, that and all that, it's a bit far. We have other things to do right now for as a nation.
But politicians, there is no time left.
Yeah, but let me say this. These are very serious issues, because questions have been asked. Why is it that every time we have to have commissioners, they have to be kicked out? What will happen about some stability? And then, Victor, we are here, but we are talking about 2050. We're talking about many years to come. Let's have structures and systems that will work. I said garbage in, garbage out. The problem we have currently, and most times, is the issue of manipulation by politicians in getting commissioners. So such that this person feels, I'm here courtesy of my big man, my godfather, political godfather out there. So whatever they are going to do, more or less, they are not able to be dependent. Later we want a situation whereby the next person who leaves a Bible and says he is a member of an independent commission, lives around their family, their clans, godfathers, political whatever, and try as much as possible to do what they are called to do. Because you have a security of tenure for 6 years. Can't you do the right thing? Victor, are you telling me that in this country, out of 52 million or maybe 19 million or 25 million adults, we don't have just 7 people who can lift a Bible and say, thank you for giving me a lead or recommending me to apply for the job, but now that I'm a commissioner, can I do God's work? Can I do the work of this nation? Now, Victor, how do we get there?
It sounds easier said than done.
Now listen, but I'm just asking, are we saying as a nation, we don't have people, yes, I'm recommended by my somebody, you know, somebody tells you, by the way, you can apply for this, you qualify. But the moment you lift the Bible, I repeat again, the moment you lift that Bible, you swear allegiance to this nation. Now, listen, and that's why, because it's good to go forward about solutions.
Right.
The law that was passed recently by Parliament, okay, reduced or rather looked at the structure of the selection panel. Okay, before there were 4 members of Parliament, which was, you know, Parliamentary Service Commission. Right now there are only 2. Then Public Service Commission, there's somebody from LSK, there's somebody from outside. I mean, outsiders are there.
Yes.
So that we are now saying, because we have to move on, right? We have our deadline in February. Can they go pick people who represent Kenya, who represent the interests of this nation as much as possible? I'll tell you this, and I'll say this on record. Please, this issue, you know, the Kenya Kwanza government is trying to do all this so that they can have friendly. Kenya Kwanza government demonstrated they don't need friendly commissioners to win an election. So it's all about the nation. It's all about Kenya Kwanza, or they are trying to
hold on to that, Dr.
Yes,
Engineer, let me ask you, there is nothing so different, because we've seen several commissions. We've seen parliamentarians bringing proposals, bills in parliament to restructure IEBC. People have gone to Bomas of Kenya. People have done a lot of symposiums and all manner of talks to restructure IEBC. But the script is always the same. After an election, there is this.
Well, you see, there's something he has said that we need to remove politicians from these conversations.
They're the biggest players at the end of the day.
Politicians are a product of us Kenyans.
Exactly.
We are the ones who make politicians.
Yes.
Today, we want to bring in LSK, judiciary, the church, the private sector. If you go to private conversation with these sectors, they are all politicians. They have an interest with a certain political figure.
Yes.
And therefore, they are not as independent or neutral as we perceive them. The challenges we have as a country is that everything for us is driven politically. Everything for us is about looking at it, how does it benefit? What is my interest? What is it that I can benefit that another person may not be able to benefit? When we start investing in national values as a country, and where we look at myself, I am who I am because of somebody else, and therefore if I benefit and the other person doesn't benefit, then we are at a loss. Then we become a greater nation. So therefore, whoever is going to be a commissioner, he needs to know that he's there not to work for Raila at the expense of Ruto, or he's there to work for Ruto at the expense of Raila. He's there to work for a country called Kenya. And Kenya is who he is because of Raila and Ruto together. Without Raila, there's no Kenya. Without Ruto, there's no Kenya. So we need to realize that we are conjoined together at some point, and therefore we need to be together. And therefore, it's important that no matter where this conversation goes, whether the tribunal will work or not, or we'll have some reforms in IEBC, as a country, national values are very important, that we start investing in them, that our children who are going to elect people in 2027, who have never participated in an election, they go to that process knowing I am looking for a person who holds certain values, who espouses certain values, who promotes a certain character of the country.
So before I go to the next topic, let me ask you this, gentlemen. So according to Honorable Raila Odinga, they'll have a consultative forum tomorrow. Where does this leave Raila Odinga? We have got 2027. We've had several talks around here. Raila Odinga will still morph into a different politician. To come 2027 is still a force to reckon with. Remember, we only had the issue of one bullet remaining. So are we going to have a fully loaded magazine again for the next battle come 2027?
I think, Victor.
And what is the essence of that quote-unquote consultative meeting?
I think for me, Raila is in a situation whereby he feels he regrets the Laila me, I should have done this from 2018. Because I was led on a path, hoping, being led that's going to be the path to power, which didn't work. So he's like, I lost this. So I'm going back to my element. Now, the whole issue about he's going to talk about failed pledges, no. He feels very badly about the commissioners. Actually, what makes this thing very urgent is the issue of the 4 commissioners. He had hoped he would put pressure, then government would bow down, and then relax this issue of commissioners and say, can they continue? So the issue is not the pledges. I mean, by now, with less than 100 days, Ruto has done over 90% pledges, maybe 2 or 3 remaining. The issue of judiciary, security, Port of Mombasa, all those kind of things. He has done what he has done. So for Laila, he's trying to reinvent himself. Now, looking at it politically, he is losing a lot of allies. The path of right now too early. You know, even if you want to criticize...
Is it something new?
Let me tell you. If it's too early, and then later is hoping the way to the pathway, because the 7 million plus who voted for him, quite a number, they are saying, you are quiet. What is happening? And then you see Kalonzo is trying to come up to say, I'm learning. So later say, no, I'm still in charge. Look at that. So later is trying to reinvent himself. However, later would have hoped that his meetings would be stopped by government. That is his biggest hope, so that he can begin getting some sympathy. Now, look at this. When he said the meeting of tomorrow, he said, no much impact, because definitely I can tell you this, everything we learn is normal. Kenyans are tired. Look here, if you do something for too long, Kenyans are like, no, please, we have a lot of issues. It happened. We had hopes. It didn't work. We went to Supreme Court. So now, the Kenyans who would go and follow Baba Lai now, to Kamukoji and be with him with the same vigor may not be there. That's why he moved to Jamhuri, to try to see whether the government will come with guns and say, it's a national holiday, you cannot have 2 meetings. But he'll continue. Then you'll see nothing much will happen. So his strategy, the Laila that we knew that would organize people so quickly, will not work. On the issue of this issue of commissioners, please, would request Azimio and everybody else. We know, what happened between the Azimio people and the commissioners. We went to Supreme, we went to Jairak, they decided to run away. Let them go. Don't put this commissioner under more trouble. Let them go silently. Here was the government. Let the bygones begin from there. If they resign, let us form the next commission. But for Laila trying to use this, it's too little, too late. Already they have resigned.
Too little, too late. But then, Dr. when you look at when you look at all this scenario, perhaps somebody would say that Raila, the way he said, is launching pad. Because Raila is reinventing himself way back from 2018. People said that this is not Raila we know. He's more of combative, he's more of assertive and outgoing. He speaks his mind. And all of a sudden, tomorrow, a situation where these 2 remaining commissioners won't resign, for them to remain, for that quote-unquote consultative meeting to be relevant, that we still have got 2 commissioners still remaining. So we are going to have a consultative forum under the guise of saving the 2. So now what happens moving forward? Launching pad? Do you think Raila is going to sustain the fire, the gusto until 2027? Or at some point is going to fizzle out?
You know, if you look at Raila as an enterprise, it has shareholders, owners who have interests. So the Raila enterprise is asking the chairman, where our interest in this conversation? We have lost 5 elections. Okay, we have invested so much in you in terms of money, time, and resources and emotions. Where do we go from now? And therefore, it's very important for Raila to hold these consultative forums. Number one, to be able to gauge his popularity in terms of what influence he has over this country. How able is he able in terms of shaking the position, the stability of the country, so that he can now use that to negotiate his next position. But he cannot come to launch himself without knowing where he is. So therefore, he needs to have these consultative forums to be able to gauge his position. Does he have the numbers? Dr. Mbai is saying people have moved on. You might be surprised. People will show up in Jacaranda and want to listen to Raila, because they were told unga will be cheap. Today, unga is still expensive. Fuel is still expensive. Hustler Fund has just come at 500 shillings maximum. There are questions that people are asking. Are we in the right direction with this government? So therefore, we cannot assume that there are no people out there who feel they want to hear another voice. And therefore Raila wants to exercise his political right to go and have this forum. It may not be very consultative. It will be a measurement of how influential am I. And therefore he will be able to decide 2023, this is a direction I'll take.
Yes.
The possibility of him coming to government is highly unlikely. Remember, Ruto is a child of the Moi administration. He was part of the Grand Coalition government. He formed the Jubilee government. This is not somebody you take lightly. So therefore he knows very well, I cannot afford to have a Raila in my government. And Raila knows that very well.
Yes.
But Raila also knows he has people out there and he has to keep their hopes and dreams alive. He has people who have invested in him. They also need some results from the effort they have invested in him. Therefore, Raila cannot just sit there and just say, I'll die away.
You've just reminded me of something, that your son is a chess player. At that point, the two gentlemen are now looking at each other like, okay, so what's going to be the next move?
Who is giving out their queen?
Exactly.
But I can tell you, in the heart of Raila, deep inside his heart, right from 1995, he would not have minded to have a way into government. That is his. Once he misses the presidency, the next thing for Raila, he wants to be part of government. Unfortunately, this time round, it's all decided so badly that he will not be given a chance. So the only thing Raila can do is try to get some relevance, try to see how much it can be stretched. Remember, Kalonzo has already announced that he's going to be in the ballot, and he wants to inherit this whole base. Remember, Mother is still there. So and Raila is saying no. The people of Raila is saying no. You are still our chairman. Can you move on? It's a very tricky issue. But what I can tell you is a bit too early to begin this kind of, because people are like, Apana, it's just 3 months, not even 100 days. When you talk about pledges, for example, when you say, the issue of, cost of living, this kind of hustler fund and all that. Let me ask you, for example, the president came out very clear and said, well, listen, I'm not going to give you short fixes. I want to start from production so that you get a sustainable low cost of living, starting from Unga, for example. With the fuel, I need time to negotiate with international oil importers. So when you go talk these things, already they have been there. When you talk about Hustler Fund, that it was promised, it will be this and this, they are about to line out 10 million Kenyans who already registered. So what are you saying? Do you have the weight? When you go to say you want to criticize, but they have been telling opposition, it's good to study, be strategic, research, so that when you hit a point of, when you put the government, on the street, or try to ask them questions, Kenyans can listen it. But you go there, talk about things and say, this, then I like.
Doctor, let me ask you a question. When you look at the two gentlemen, do you really think the president can sit pretty easy and assume Honorable Raila Odinga?
That's a very good question. Honorable Raila Odinga is a man, even us who are students of political science, we studied him, even in school, at the university. He's a man, we cannot wish him, he's a child of God. I mean, he's a Kenyan. He has his own light and he has his own people. What we are saying, Victor, this is very important. We went to an election. There was no way we are going to have two presidents in Kenya. And that is the beauty of democracy. And everybody ganged and later voted and planned and said, let me have Uhuru on my side. And it was this way versus this way. And we went to an election. The moment elections are done, it's very simple. The president comes and says, yes, I have half of the country, you have the other, whatever, but now we are one nation. I'm the president. Let's move on. Later can do what he wants to do. But, for example, there's a proposal in Parliament, right, to introduce official leader opposition. And the government have said, we have no problem. We have no problem. No problem at all. Why? Because nobody has a problem with the leader becoming the official opposition leader, and having a shadow cabinet, being facilitated by government to do his work.
The same question goes to you, engineer. Can the president afford to avoid or assume that Honorable Raila Odinga exists, politically speaking?
To answer that question, you have to look at the history.
Yes.
1997, Raila was part of Moi's government. 2002, 2007, Raila at some point was part of Kibaki administration. 2007, 2013, 2012, Raila was half the government of Kibaki. It's only 2013 to 2017 that Raila was not part of any government. And therefore, this is a person over 15 to 20 years has been part of government. So for you to wish him away, it would be foolhardy. And therefore, if you look at 2017, 2018, he did the same thing he's doing now, caused a bit of mayhem, and by March of 2018, there was a handshake So you cannot just afford to wish it from me. What we are now saying is that the person he's doing this game with is a different child. He's a child of God, as Ruto has been called. And therefore, he is coming prepared for this person, knowing that this person, his intention clearly is to destabilize my government and find his way into my bedroom. And therefore, I will do whatever it takes to remove him. So Ruto is giving him what he doesn't expect. Oh, you want opposition leader? I'll give it to you. You want to be the boss of the opposition? I'll give it to you. So he's able to play him that way. He's giving certain pawns in this game. So
could this be a ploy?
It is
to avoid the quote-unquote the handshake.
That is exactly what is happening, because Raila cannot afford to be in the cold.
Pros and cons.
And his soldiers are telling him we cannot afford to be in this cold forever. We even had the government to help us win an election, and we are not there. We cannot afford. We cannot see Kalonzo being out there demonstrating and being hauled with tear gases. Do you see that kind of a person? And therefore, Raila is under a lot of pressure to deliver for his people.
What has it that part of the discussion which was there during yesterday's PG at Windsor was that proposal to bring the office of the official opposition fully funded by the government? What are the pros and cons of that?
Well, the beauty with that office is that it will be able to hold the government to account in a more official manner. At the moment, whatever statements Raila may make, they may be just mere political position. But if he's an official opposition leader, the record will be in place of the position of the opposition side of the government. And therefore, government will be required to put resources to address certain issues that the opposition may raise. At the moment, it's just a mere issue of consultation. But if there is an official opposition leader, therefore the government will be required to not just put resources, but even personnel, and invest in terms of time in addressing whatever the opposition may require to be done. That's very important. The downside of it is that we will have a bit of more expensive legislation. But that's okay. If we can be able to save in terms of the kind of grand corruption that we have seen over the last 10 years. So we need an effective opposition to save us the country. We have seen the IEBC CEO who was prosecuted in 2013 is now being convicted after 10 years. We don't want such a scenario where corruption cases are taking over 10 years to be prosecuted. Can we find a way where even an opposition can be able to be strong enough to even prevent from this kind of grand corruption?
All right, gentlemen, I'm told that you're running out of time. But before we go, I want to give you final words. Let me start with you. 100 days after President Ruto's regime, very quickly.
Very well. A lot has happened. 100 is in another 18 days or so.
Yes.
I think around December 21st. Look, about the top 10 pledges have been done very quickly. I mean, the judges were sworn in the following day. There was an order signed to give 3 billion additional judiciary fund that was pending the constitution for many years. The port of Mombasa. Some of those things are actually administrative issues. Look at the issue of the giving authority to incur expenditure, independence of the security forces. Now, Hustler Fund was launched, and by the way, Victor, I'll tell you this: if somebody feels they don't need the 500, it was not meant for them. Let them wait for 1 million, 10 million, the circle that is coming. Let's be very categorical here. If 500 can help somebody to add eggs to do, that was meant for them, not for you. Let's go there. 10 billion right now, about 6 billion already dispersed and all that. That one is done already. Now, let me be very key. The issue of cost of living, the issue of UNGA, Victor, let's be very categorical. It is already about 6 million bags already coming to help this next season. What happens? The cost of production goes down. Then the cost of UNGA will come up. Sustainability. So that one has already been done, right? The government already is set, more or less. I mean, the CSs with the PSs on board.
Exactly.
That's the mission of government. So we are seeing like 95% of the pledges done. And the one that's not like done, like the cost of living, is already started. The process has started.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
No. I mean, 9 already, so far. So far, in terms of achievements and effort and passion and
zeal. Us with 9.
I can tell you.
Well, for me, I just want to still give room to this administration to really prove its worth. They have really they had promised quite a number of things.
Yeah.
They have made attempts here and there to deliver, but I think they still have room to really reveal the full value of this administration. We have the PSAs who have just appointed, I think this week, I mean last week. So therefore, in terms of the workings of the government, we are yet to see how the proper operationalization of the Ruto administration would be. The cabinet secretaries, they had gaffes here and there with the communication problems of Moses Kuria and the CS for education. We need that to be organized so that we can see a clear communication from the government. We don't want this kind of headlines which are bringing confusion. In terms of the opposition, I think they haven't found their footing properly. We cannot be asking for consultative forums just because of 4 people. Yet, issues like fuel and cost of living, we have not called for consultative forum. That is hypocrisy. One of the issues that you should ask for consultative meetings about is addressing the cost of living, not about firing of 4 commissioners. That suggests that this opposition has not yet really defined its role with this administration, and therefore it will leave this administration with a free hand to do whatever it will do, and that's quite unfortunate.
Gentlemen, thank you. They say that you have to know when to leave. Unfortunately, you have to leave at this particular point. Whether you're the best dancer, know when to leave the stage. Okay, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Dr. Mbai, thank you so much for coming to the show, and Engineer Crispus Wathimba as well for coming over, and you as a viewer for your valid company. Let's take a break. When we come back, now we are heading to Zinga, where Dora Manya and Rashid Momkondo will be taking over. What do they really have? Stick around for that. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Good morning.
The excitement. Relish every moment. Get 1.5 GB at 50 bob. Valid for 3 hours. Furahia futa. Dial *544 hash. Make Chaguo smarter na Airtel, the most affordable network.
On the left side, he's got Mbappe for company, close to Mbappe, and then carves it again, and this would be the nail in the coffin on the Polish side as Kylian Mbappe scores again. We're playing added time. It's the 91st minute. It's Thuram with the assist to Mbappe, and he just looks at where the goalkeeper is. Another clinical finish that helps Le Bleu to lead this one. 3-0, and only playing for added time will be a very difficult task for the Polish side to come back into this game. They'll have to score 3 goals in the few added minutes that there are, and that might
Sauti ya Kenya 92.9. Hii ni KBC Radio Taifa.
Kila kitu maishani kina sauti yaleta furaha.
Radio.
Sauti ya elimisha yahimiza yatuleta pamoja. Sauti ya Kenya
Radio Taifa.
Sauti ya Kenya.
Hayawi hayawi huwa Kinyang'anyiro cha kombe la dunia nchini Qatar cha wananga Novemba 20 hadi Disemba 18, huku timu 32 zikiwania taji. KBC Channel 1 inakupa fursa ya kutizama mbashara kipute hicho kutoka Qatar nyumbani kwako. Runinga ya KBC Channel 1 inakukaribisha kwenye kipindi cha Dunda Dunda Qatar.
Nakwambia kwamba baba, alama ya reli ni Dunda Dunda Qatar.
Na tunakuja nyumbani pale mtaani pale ambapo upo wewe mwenyewe,
huku ukijishindia zawadi chungu nzima.
Hapa kumejaa vitu kocho kocho.
Jongea, shabiki kwenye Dunda Dunda Qatar.
Ukitazama unashinda.
KBC Channel 1, wenzio wa dhati michezoni.
We can get Kalasha to the prestige that is the Oscars.
But what Kalasha is doing, and it's been 12 years now running, is beyond just a passion project.
And broadcasters, wherever they are, I'm also calling on them to be able to share Kenyan stories.
Thank you so much for this platform.
I do for the culture, mimi.
Shin City was an actual city, or rather an artistic representation of one.
I want to build something for my people.
Few hours into his performance, Femi One, in her usual colorful self, rocked up on stage and absolutely wrecked their performance off properly. Pamoja Dancing Group, in conjunction with Eric Langet, a lifetime coach and a dancing choreographer for people living with disability all the way from France, organized a special event.
With disability, ama mtu aliye na maumbile tofauti. Kwanza ni akubali alivyo.
Ai, venye ina slap kishash, kishash, kishash.
KBC Channel 1 mahali popote ulipo, nikiangalia kopo langu la saa ni saa 2 na dakika 5 saa za kanda ya Afrika Mashariki. Karibu kwenye kipindi Zinga kupitia KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Kenya, na vile vile pia karibu sana kwenye kipindi Good Morning Kenya kupitia runinga yako unaipenda ya KBC Channel 1. Na kama ada kama dawa, kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 2 hadi saa 3 huwa ni ushirikiano kati ya Radio Taifa na KBC Channel 1, na ni kipindi ambacho kuletea masuala ya kisiasa mtazamaji. Lakini kwa leo hatutaki kuangazia swala la kisiasa. Kuna swala muhimu sana mtazamaji ambalo lazima tuweze kulizungumzia. Na nini mtazamaji na msikilizaji? Ni kuhusiana na dhulma za kijinsia. Kumbuka kuna zile siku 16 ambazo zimetengwa kimataifa kuweza kupigana na vile vile pia kuzungumzia masuala ya jinsia ama dhulma za kijinsia, hususan kwa mtoto wa kike na vile vile pia kwa wanawake kwa ujumla. Ni siku ambazo zilianza tarehe 25 Novemba na zinatarajiwa kukamilika tarehe 10 Disemba mtazamaji. Je, hali iko vipi ya dhulma za kijinsia katika taifa la Kenya miaka 59 tangu tujinyakulia uhuru? Ndani ya studio mtazamaji niko naye seneta maalum wa chama cha UDA Mheshimiwa Tabitha Mutinda, na vile vile pia niko naye mwanaharakati wa kukabiliana na masuala ya wanawake na vile vile pia tuzo la rais, yani Head of State Commendation Bi Lucy Moria ndani ya studio kunisaidia. Jina langu naitwa Rashid Mumkondo, upande wa pili niko naye Dora Manya, na upande wa tatu niko nao kikosi kizima cha kina Victor Olowo. Nichukue fursa hii kukaribisha ndani ya studio. Karibu sana Bi Lucy ndani ya studio zetu.
Asante sana Rashid.
Habari ya masiku?
Tuko salama.
Tulipoteana tangu wakati wa siasa.
Muda mrefu na siasa ikaisha na maisha inaendelea.
Sasa tuchape kazi.
Tunaendelea sasa kujenga taifa.
Karibu sana.
Kwa sababu kura tunatafuta kwa wananchi. Kwa hivyo lazima sasa tuwa protect.
Okay. Asante Bi Lucy Moria yuko ndani ya studio, na upande wangu niko naye Mheshimiwa Tabitha Mutinda ambaye ni seneta maalum wa chama cha UDA. Karibu sana.
Asante Rashid.
Tulikutana kule kwingine leo tunakutana huku kwingine.
Pasasa.
Karibuni sana, jisini huru
Asante. Mimi hata sitawadhulumu, nitawapatia time. Sawa. Labda tu tukianza na Bi Lucy, ukiangalia dhuluma za kijinsia katika taifa letu la Kenya hadi kufikia sasa, je, visa vimepungua ama vinazidi, na ni nini imesababisha?
Mimi kusema ukweli, hakuna mahali zimepungua kiasi, lakini hazijafika mahali zilikuwa zinatakana zipo. Kwa sababu tuseme kama mama ya FGM, Rais alikuwa amesema by 2022 December, saa hii leo tunaongea hapa ni December, itakuwa imekoma na ikaisha. Lakini kama kwenye nimetoka kweli ni kama hata inaendelea kwa zaidi.
Unatoka wapi mheshimiwa? Hebu tuelezee.
Mimi natoka county ya Isiolo. Na huko tumepambana sana, zimepungua, lakini kama last month tulikuwa na kisa cha ajabu mahali mtoto wa miezi 6 alikuwa amefanyiwa FGM na wazazi wake.
Miezi 6?
Yes. Na huyo mtoto wazazi waliweza kushikwa. Hata saizi mtoto I think anaendelea kupona, kama ametoka hospitali, na baba alipelekwa kotini, kesi bando. So hiyo ni mambo ya ajabu. Kwa sababu kama tunasema by 2022 December, and then tunakutana na visa kama mtoto mdogo wa miezi 6. Na ni baba yake na mama wanashuhudia na wanakubali itendeke. Na baba anang'ang'ana kusema hiyo ni mila. Sasa hatujui, labda tuanze vita ya mila, sasa tuachane na mambo ya kijinsia dhuluma.
Mheshimiwa, sijui kauli yake unaisemaje kwamba visa vimepungua lakini bado kuna sehemu havijapungua. Wewe kikauli yako unaonaje?
Wanacho ni shukuru Rashid kwa show yetu ya leo, na ni shukuru Bi Lucy na nimpe kongolo kwa ile kazi ambayo naifanya. Swala la GBV ni swala ambalo linazidi kuongezeka, na tunavyozungumza sasa hata statistics zinaonyesha ya kwamba kudhulumiwa kwa kijinsia ni swala ambalo limezidi kuendelea bado kuongezeka, na ni la kuhuzunisha sana, na sio kwa wanawake peke yake, pia ni kwa wanaume, na ni la kusikitisha sana. Mimi ambaye na represent county ya Nairobi, hizi ni mambo unapata dhuluma zinazidi kuendelea. Tunaona familia zinazidi kuzozana, wamama wanazidi kudhulumiwa na wanaume pia wanazidi kudhulumiwa. Kwa maoni yangu sasa hivi pande zote zinapitia yale dhuluma, na ni jambo la kusikitisha. Lakini cha kufurahia ni kwamba mikakati ambayo serikali inaweka, na especially serikali ya Kenya Kwanza, imekuwa kipaumbele. Rais amekuwa kipaumbele kushika wamama mkono, kwa sababu ndio wako na ile percentage kubwa sana ya wale ambao wanadhulumiwa, na ameweza kuangalia suluhisho through kuweka wamama mbele, kuwapatia nafasi za uongozi ili waweze kuwa ishara, waweze kuwa mstari wa mbele, kuweza kusaidia shida kama hizi, kuweza kuzizungumzia na kuweza kuweka mikakati ya kuzitatua.
Leo asubuhi tulikuwa tunazungumza na mwenzangu Dora Manya upande wa pili, na tukapata kwamba kuna kisa ambapo bwana mmoja aliweza kumwagiwa maji ya moto na mke wake. Kwa sababu gani? Alitoka kuangalia mpira akiwa amechelewa. Sijui Bi Lucy, nikianza kwako kabla kuja kwa mheshimiwa, ni vitu gani vinapelekea mpaka tudhulumiane kijinsia? Mtu anampiga mke wake, mtu anamdunga kisu, anamuua, anamwagia maji ya moto. Kuna sababu kweli za kufanya hivi?
Kusema kweli Rashid, kama vile mwenzangu Mutinda amesema, dhuluma iko sehemu zote kwa waume na wakike, na imezidi kwanza hapo kwa kutupiana, kumwagiana maji, kuuana, kunyonga familia yote. Hata jana kulikuwa na kisa, mzee ameua watoto wawili, hata kule Marekani ni Mkenya actually. Alienda juzi ameshoot his 2 big daughters and the wife na akanjua. Kwa hivyo ni kuonesha tuko na shinda. Na hii si maneno ya kuendelea sasa kuongea juu ya wamama wamedhulumiwa peke yao. This is a family issue na inaonekana imeaffect kila wani. Nafikiri na ni kweli hivyo, poverty imekuwa mingi. Umaskini umekuwa mingi, na kama tuseme kama wewe saizi wazee wengi hata kazi wanapoteza, labda hata anaenda kwa hiyo mpira ama kukunywa pombe mingi sio vile anataka. Anafikiri hiyo ni njia ya kupungua mengi yale yako naye yanamsumbua. Na kimaumbile waume na wanawake wako tofauti. At least wanawake wanaongeanga mambo yao, mimi tunaweza share na Mtinda mwambie vile kuko, and the more wakati unaongea mambo inapungua. But wanaume wanaficha, wanakaa na mambo yao inside. So anakaa hiyo asira ikiaccumulate ikikuwa mingi. So inaweza tokea kwa maji, kwa bunduki, ama kuona hii ndio mwisho wa maisha, ama kuona hata hii familia if I cannot provide, basi afadhali hata tuwe atupo sisi wote. Kwa hivyo I think mambo ya poverty inaleta stress, ukosefu wa makazi. Stress ikikuja ina accumulate mpaka inakuja inakuwa depression ni sasa ni kama umefika mwisho, na wengi wetu hawajui. Most people saizi wanatembea hata hii Nairobi wako wagonjwa kiakili, na tujatilia maanani yale mambo ya kuona kuna uongo wa kiakili. Hasa in grew up tulikuwa tukiona kama mtu ameruka kichwa, watoto hata tukua watoto unakimbia ukisema ni mwenda wazimu. Wenye unasikia tu wakisema hata wakubwa. Lakini hakuna kitu inaitwa ugonjwa wa akili, ni ugonjwa kama ule mwingine. Na sana saizi huo ugonjwa unaletwa na stress, na alafu ina-accumulate mpaka inakuwa depression. Na ikiwa imefika pale, kwa hivyo utajiona kama huna raha. Umekuja labda umeona hiyo mpira yako, kuna hapa kwa nyumba watu hata hawajakula, na wewe unasema unatoka mpira, labda hiyo maji hata umemwagiwa ilikuwa ya ugali. Tunangojea unga ikuji, watoto ndio hawa analia. Kama ule mama wa Mombasa ule tulisikia kwa amepikia watoto mawe mpaka wakalala. Kwa hivyo shinda imekuwa mingi. Hii ukosefu wa kazi, umaskini umezidi.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Mutinda amezungumzia kuhusiana na vyanzo vinavyopelekea masuala ya ama dhulma za kijinsia, lakini tumeona kuna visa vingi sana. Sheria iko wapi? Mbona sheria ifanyi kazi yake?
Wacha nianze na kujibu swali lako la mama amerudi kutoka kwa mpira
amekutana na maji moto
na niseme ya kwamba hiyo shida iwezi kuwa imeanza hapo kwa sababu ameenda kuona mpira akarudi kisha akamwagiwa maji. Ni shida ambazo zimekuwa, ni shida ambazo zime build up kwa muda mrefu. Ni ile nafasi haijajitokeza ndio unapata sasa mama analipuka. Lakini hiyo ni suluhisho, sio suluhisho. Mimi kama ambaye nina familia pia, okay, ni vyema kama familia tuweze kuwa na mikakati ya kuweza kuwa marafiki na kuweza kuelewana, kwa sababu si hatia kwenda kuona mpira, hamna hatia. Na ni vyema tuweze kuweka nafasi kama familia, tuweze kujua wakati wa kuelezana maneno. Na ndio kwa sababu hata wakati tunafunga ndoa tunasema kwa wakati wa shida, wakati wa raha, wakati tunagonjeka, wakati tuna afya, wakati kuna kitu nyumbani na wakati hakuna. Tuweze kuzidi kuvumiliana. Uwezo wa kuweza kuvumiliana kifamilia, kuelewana, inafika unapata unapotea. Kwa sababu pia unapata kama ni jinsia zote, kama ni wanaume ama kama ni mama, unapata kuna mkimbizano, kuna competition kati ya boma. Unapata pia kuna vile my sister amesema, ndio kuna issue za changamoto za kazi. Lakini wakati pia mlikuwa mnakuja pamoja, amfai kuwa mnakuja pamoja kwa sababu mwenzako ana kazi ama hana. Mmekuja pamoja kwa sababu mmeona mna zile factors ambazo zinawaleta pamoja. Hizo ndio mnafaa kuziweka pamoja, muone vile mtazidi kusonga mbele. Kwa sababu kama hatutaelekezwa na yale na ule msingi ambao umetuleta pamoja kama familia, then kusonga pale mbele inakuwa ngumu. Ndio unapata tukizidi kuendelea watu wanaanza kuzona, kwa sababu zile goals ambazo zilikuwa zimeanzisha ile zimeleta watu pamoja zinaanza kudeviate, zinaanza kwenda pande huu na pande huu, na tunapoteza msingi. Ni swala ambalo nazidi kusema ni za kuhuzunisha, kwa sababu ikifika mahali ambapo wewe kama ndume ya nyumba unarudi kwako na hiyo unapokea, ni swala ambalo lina huzuni sana. Na mimi huzidi kusema na nazidi kueleza ya kwamba wamama sisi ndio shingo na wanaume ndio kichwa. Tuache kutaka kuwa kichwa na tuzidi kushikilia ile nafasi yetu ya shingo, kwa sababu sisi wote tukiwa kichwa na tutaweza kusonga mbele. Hapo kutakuwa kila sana mgogoro. Swala la sheria zile serikali imeweka, tuko na katiba yetu ambayo imeweza katiba katika kipengele cha article 10 kimeweza kuweka rights za wanawake za kijinsia ya kila mtu. Sheria ina protect kila mtu. Tuko na pia the Offence Act Bill 2006 ya Njoki Ndung'u. Tuko na sheria ambazo serikali imeweka. Swala umeuliza ya kwamba zinafuatwa ama namna gani? Sheria zinafuatwa kwa sababu unapata kama ni wamama wamedhulumiwa, wanatokea na wanaenda wanashtaki, wanajieleza, wanazungumza, wanatokea wana relieve ile mambo wanapitia. Lakini katika tamaduni zetu vile mtoto wetu wa kiume amelewa kana kwamba akiwa na shida yeye ni mwanaume, akianguka asilie, akipigwa asijitokeze, asijieleze, akae na yale mambo. Kitamaduni unapata akitokea inakaa wewe ni mwanaume wa aina gani. Wanasahau ya kwamba pia ni mtu na ni mwanadamu. Okay, so wanaume pia katika mambo haya waweze kutafuta marafiki na environments ambazo zinawakubalia waweze kupata mikakati ambayo inayofaa. Kwa sababu pia ile environment unapata mwanaume anaingia anaambia wewe ni ndume, wewe ni mwanaume uwezi, anaumia ndani. Na ndio unapata mtu umekuwa na yeye leo, ukiamkia asubuhi ama jioni unasikia alilala kuamka nini, akiangaliwa stress, pressure ilipanda, mambo kama hayo. So ningependa kueleza wanaume wajieke katika zile environment ambazo pia zinaweza kuwasaidia. Ukiangalia sahi boy child ni huzuni sana, unapata youth wetu wote wasichana na wote wanaume wamefanikiwa kwa njia moja kidogo kidogo. Kuna wale wako makazini na mambo kama hayo, lakini hawaweki ile mikakati ya pale mbele itakuwa namna gani. Maisha yao ni ya sasa tu. So wakifikia ile reality ya kuanza kuwa na familia, kuanza kubarikiwa na watoto, kuanza kufanya majukumu ya kulipa school fees, ya kulipa zile bills zingine na kuendelea, ndio sasa ile inaitwa reality inaanza kuwahit, kwa sababu hawakuweza kujipanga. Kwa sababu unapata most of the time ni mambo ya influence ya hapa. So mimi naimiza ya kwamba wajieke katika zile environment ya kwamba dikienda the next level ya kuwa na familia, kujaribu kusettle na vitu kama hizo, nazo pia tukue na zile environment. Uwezi kuwa unataka kuwa na familia na bado uko pande ile, itakuwa kuondoa katika ile focus ambayo inafaa. Na hapo ndio hizi shida zinaanza kukita mizizi. By the time wanataka wanazungumza katika hali ya kupigana, hali ya matusi inalipuka na inakuwa sad sana. Mimi nakumbuka miaka kidogo imepita, tumeona msichana sijui wa darasa 6 amedunga kijana kisu kwa sababu ya mapenzi. Mimi najiuliza, mtoto wa darasa 6 ni mapenzi gani hiyo yeye anaelewa kiwango cha kuchukua kisu na kudunga kijana ambayo akotujui darasa la 8 kidato cha kwanza? Ni jambo la kuzunisha, kwa sababu ile focus inakuja inapotea. Na sisi kama wazazi, sisi kama viongozi, haya ni mambo unasikiza inahuzunisha sana. Unasikia pia watoto wadogo wamepata mimba, watoto wadogo imefanyika hivi. ni jambo la kusikitisha sana, na ndio tunasema kulingana na umri waweze kujiweka katika zile environments ambazo zinafaa. Jambo lingine la serikali imejaribu kufanya, serikali ya Kenya Kwanza through His Excellency Ruto aliweka kamati ya kushughulikia hili swala za CBC, kuelewa vile umuhimu wake, na nafurahia kwa sababu ile ripoti inakuja mzuri, na ni swala ni education system ambayo itaweza kuelewa watoto wetu, na kubaliana ya kwamba generation imebadilika. Tuko 2022, vile tulikuwa tunazungumzia watoto wetu miaka iliyopita pale in the 90s ni tofauti sana. Na naimiza viongozi wenzangu tuweke ile lugha ambayo tunaweza zungumza na wale youth wetu kufikia sasa.
Naam, mtazamaji wa runinga ya KBC Channel 1, mjadala umepamba moto hapa ndani ya studio, na muona Senator Mutinda anataka kulipuka kizungumzia swala zima ili msikilizaji na mtazamaji la dhulma za kijinsia. Kumbuka unaweza kufuatilia kipindi hiki kupitia mitandao yetu. Kumbuka kwenye Instagram @KBC Channel 1 na kwenye Twitter @KBC Channel 1 na vile vile pia kwenye Facebook @KBC Channel 1 TV. Zaidi ya yote unaweza kufuatilia kipindi hiki kupitia KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ya Mkenya. Upande wa pili niko naye mwenzangu Dora Manya. Mimi hapa naitwa Rashid Mwamkondo. Turudi kwako Bi Lucy na wetu kupatia nafasi. Haya masuala economic violence, psychological violence, emotional violence, physical violence na sexual violence, hizi zote tutazieka vipi tuone jinsi gani zinavokula haki za mwanamke na mtoto, na tutazizuia vipi? Kwa sababu tuseme ukweli, siku hizi wanaume wana abuse wanawake physically, emotionally, sexually, economically.
Asante sana Rashid. Dadangu, asante kwa hiyo input. Ameongea juu ya utamaduni wetu. Kuna mahali tulikuwa na utamaduni ambao ulikuwa unasawawisha, yani kila mtu alikuwa anajua hata role yake. Lakini hayo mambo tena yameondoka kwa sababu ya poverty. Unakuta hata watoto tunasema wako na stress mingi sana. Wewe ulikuja kazini saa ngapi?
Saa 9 alfajiri.
Na jana ulienda mpira mpaka saa ngapi?
Saa 6 usiku.
Wewe ulikuja hapa kazi saa ngapi? Na ni mama by 5 ameondoka kwa nyumba. Kwa hivyo mtoto wetu wa kisasa ni wa maid, ni wa mfanya kazi. Mtoto wako mwenyewe umuelewi. Watoto kama hii Nairobi, mtoto anamushwa by 4 ndiye atajirishwa kwenda shule. Anaingishwa kwa basi, wengine wanafunga hata macho. Remember daddy alitoka mpira akakuja saa 6, ulikuta amelala. Remember mama alifika kwa nyumba saa 3 ajili ya njamu, alikuwa hata yeye kazini. Na saa hii mtoto ameamuka na akaenda shule. Ile shule, kati ya mwalimu na wewe mzazi, nani anaelewa huyo mtoto? Hakuna ule anamfahamu. Kwa hivyo watoto wako na hiyo stress. Kwa hivyo hii yote economic stress imeletwa na mambo ya kazi, vile nilisema. Imeletwa na umaskini, kwa sababu kama ingekuwa ni ule wakati mama alikuwa anakaa na watoto wake nyumbani na yeye baba ana provide, lakini wababa wa kuprovide wako wapi? Wako wapi?
Tuko hapa.
Ukimkuta ukiacha mama hata na watoto, kazi yako ni kukaa tu kwa nyumba, si ndio? Ni hivyo. Lakini sasa sio hivyo kama zamani. Kwa hivyo kiutamaduni wetu tuko out kabisa. Hakuna mila, watoto wetu hatuwaelewi, hatuwafahamu. Mtoto amefika class 3 amepelekwa boarding. So huyu mtoto has no attachment na anyone. Ana grow akiwa na uchungu. Amuelewi baba, amuelewi mama amuelewi mtoto, wote wana grow kama roommates. Huo ndio ukweli wa mambo. Na shule hiyo mambo nafikiri ilianza kuisha wakati wetu. I think sisi ndio tulikuwa mwisho kukuta mama yetu nyumbani tukitoka shule. Hata wangu wenyewe hajanikuta. Uko kukimbishana na maisha, uko kukimbishana zui rent, zui bills, zui nini. So hii mambo ya umaskini imechangia na kaucha yetu haikui vile. Hao vijana wenyewe zamani walikuwa wanaongeleshwa, mababu zao wako na time ya kuwaongelesha venye familia inakaa. Zamani hata kanisa za zamani ziko tofauti na hii ya saa hii. Ulikuwa unaenda unaongea hata na pastor na anaelewa, kwa sababu pastor ni mtu kama mzazi. Sasa saa hii pastor wewe ni kijana hata chini yako, kwa sababu anataka kazi. So anakuwa advice nini? Siku hizi hata marafiki hakuna. There's nothing like good friend. Ukiamuka sasa unaenda kudiscuss venye shinda zako ziko, the way naambia wanaume muongeange. Hakuna mtu akiongea inakuwa ni matangazo sasa. Umejua Rashid bwana, hata mke alimpiga, hata watoto wake wote ni yes, it is like that. Kwa hivyo waaminifu hakuna siku hizi. Nafikiri zamani kulikuwa, kwa sababu watu walikuwa wamekomaa ile kimila yetu. Pia kuna hata dini ziko ni kama cult. Pia uyafaziwa maneno sasa na pesa ama poverty dini. Kuna lawyer, remember from Kiambu, lawyer mzima akona mkazi na nini kila kitu. Ule aliamuka siku moja amenyonga familia yote. One day, hata hiyo story nimeiona kwa Tuko News. So mambo kama hayo tumekoza ile laini ya kuwa tumekuwa brainwashed. Sisi tuko kwa western culture, we are not there. Tuko kwa Kiafrika, we are not there. Tuko katikati, we want to be this, we want to be that. Ukiulizwa mpira football ni nini na Kiafrika ni nini, tulikuwa na mila zetu. Sisemi turundi kule, but we must balance na tujue mambo ingine tunayowafuata sana ni ya kigeni. Ile kama vile dadangu alisema, ile heshima, kuna shingo na kichwa, hiyo iko. Lakini sasa sio hivyo, siku hizi ni mashindano na kuto appreciate. Yes, constitution imesema tuko na right gani. Unaweza kuwa hata upewe nomination kama huyo mama ikuwe shinda. Ikuwe sasa utakikani, inferiority complex inaingililia hapo. Si ndio? Na hakuna makosa amefanya. Maybe she was a senior corporate woman, but the minute amepewa hiyo kazi sasa inakuwa hata shinda kwake tena. Wazee wengi hawataki hivyo hata maendeleo. Ni ukweli. Hawataki. So inakuwa ni competition. So I think we need a common ground. Mahali sisi wote tunaongea, tunasema we are building the nation, munasikizana. Hata kama ni yeye, kama kule Marekani, kama mama ndio hata anapata more salary, mzee anakaa na watoto nyumbani, someone must be there for the children. Kama ni mzee anapata zaidi, he can provide, mama pia anakalisha. Huko western actually hata wako na sisi, lazima watoto watunzwe, and especially mpaka 14 years they must have a babysitter. 14 years ni mtoto. Lakini wetu tuliwaacha lini na maid.
Asante Mheshimiwa Zuia. Hapo mwelekezi wangu upande wa pili Ben Kamuti ananiambia twende mapumziko mafupi. Mtazamaji, kumbuka hii ni KBC Channel 1, runinga inayokuletea mubashara michuano ya kombe la dunia mtazamaji, na hii leo ni zamu ya timu ya kipekee barani Afrika ambayo imebakia, Morocco dhidi ya Uhispania. Mtazamaji, ulijua kwamba unaweza ukaingia Spain ama Uhispania kutoka Morocco ukitumia boti ama dau? Linawezekana. Sasa sijui itakuwa vipi mtazamaji. Ndani ya studio niko naye Mheshimiwa Tabitha Mutinda ambaye ni seneta maalum wa chama cha UDA, na vile vile pia niko naye mtetezi wa haki za kibinadamu, haki za watoto na vile vile pia za wanawake, Bi Lucy Moria. Napumzika kidogo, takaporudi tutasonga mbele. Upande wa pili yuko mwenzangu Dora Manya, na msikilizaji, takaporudi pia tutakushirikisha wewe moja kwa moja. Lakini kwa sasa pumziko fupi.
World Cup, which is just a dial away. World Cup, Iko KBC.
Feel the excitement. Relish every moment. Get 1.5 GB at 50 bob. Valid for 3 hours. Furahia futa. Dial *544#. Make chaguo smarter na Airtel. The most.
FM Gigosi
98.0 Kitwek FM Gigosin.
We can get Kalasha to the prestige that is the Oscars.
But what Kalasha is doing, and it's been 12 years now running, is beyond just a passion project.
And broadcasters, wherever they are, I'm also calling on them to be able to share Kenyan stories.
Thank you so much for this platform.
I do for the culture, Mimi.
Shin City was an actual city, or rather an artistic representation of one.
I want to build something for my people.
Few hours into his performance, Femi One, in her usual colorful self, rocked up on stage and absolutely wrecked their performance off properly. Pamoja Dancing Group, in conjunction with Eric Languettes, a lifetime coach and a dancing choreographer for people living with disability all the way from France, organized a special event.
People with disability ama mtu aliye na maumbile tofauti, kwanza ni akubali alivyo.
Ai, venye ina slap kishash, kishash, kishash.
zaidi kuhusiana na masuala ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba unawekeza na SportPesa katika muda usiokuwa mrefu, lakini kwa sasa nimwangalie mwenzangu Rashid. Kama uko tayari, kazi kwako Rashid.
KBC Radio Taifa, sauti ya Mkenya, na KBC Channel 1. Ndani ya studio niko naye Mheshimiwa Bi Tabitha Botinda ambaye ni senator maalum wa chama cha UDA, na ndani ya studio vile vile pia niko naye Mheshimiwa Bi Lucy Moria ambaye kama nilivyokuambia ni mwanaharakati wa kutetea haki za kibinadamu, haki za watoto na haki za wanawake. Mtazamaji, tunazungumzia nini kuhusiana na dhulma za kijinsia? Na kama tulivyokuambia hivi punde nitakuwa narudi kwako msikilizaji, kama una swala lolote utaweza kuuliza wageni wangu hapa ndani ya studio. Labda nikirudi kwenu, nikianza na Mheshimiwa Bi Tabitha, kuna hizi funds ambazo ziko nyingi tu sana. Kuna sijui Women Affirmative Action, sijui kuna NGAF, sijui kuna Hustler Fund, na Mheshimiwa Lucy hapa aligusia swala la umaskini na swala zima la uchumi kuchangia masuala haya. Je, huoni kwamba hizi zikitumiwa vizuri kuempower watu, masuala ya GBV yatapungua?
Asante Rashid, na nirudi pale nyuma kidogo, ulikuwa umeuliza swala la the economic issue na ile psychological issue, na niseme ya kwamba ni kweli na kubali ya kwamba economic issues zinachangia sana, kwa sababu unapata mwanamke kwa muda mrefu imekuwa kana kwamba ametegemea mwanaume sana kuweza kuwa kama ndio the main provider, na unapata saa zingine wanaume wanachukua ile kama advantage, na unapata sasa pale mama ama mwanamke anakuwa anadhulumiwa kwa sababu inabidi akae akitegemea yule mwanaume. na pia ina apply psychologically, unapata ile stress ambayo wanawake wanapitia kwa sababu ya yale mambo wanazidi kupitia. Issue pia ile ya physical, kupigwa, kuumizwa inakuwa mbaya sana, na pia kuna ile issue ya sexual violence. Unapata hata mama sengine ni mjamzito, anaenda kupoteza mtoto, ama pia anaweza kupata maradhi ambayo yanazidi kumuaffect. Vile uliuliza ya kwamba suluhisho, hizi fedha ambazo ziko katika serikali, tuko na sasa tunafurahia kuwa na Hustler Fund, na namshukuru sana rais kwa sababu ni one of ile mambo tulikuwa nayo sisi kama Kenya Kwanza katika manifesto. Na juzi tumeweza ku-launch na tumeweza kufungulia Wakenya nafasi ya kuweza kuchukua hizi fedha waweze kujisaidia. Na niseme vile serikali iliweza kufanya ama inafanya ni kuzungumza na mwananchi. Kuna ile mazungumzo ndio iweze kujua shida iko wapi na solution tutaenda namna gani. Na nafurahi kwa sababu fedha kama za Hustler Fund ni fedha ambazo sana zitaweza economically kuweza kuempower jinsia zote, wanaume, wanawake ambao walijitokeza na wakasema wako na ile energy ya kufanya kazi, wako na ile kutamani kufanya kazi. Changamoto wako nayo ni fedha. So hizi vile fedha zitazidi kuwafikia, na ningewahimiza sana waweze kuapply, waweze pata hizi fedha, waweze kuanzisha biashara zao, waanze kwa udogo na waweze kuzidi kupanda juu. Na niseme na niongeze vile my sister aliweza kusema, maisha vile yalivyo, expenditure vile ilivyo wakati huu, hakuna unga ukienda pale supermarket ama kwa duka imeandikwa ati sababu wewe ni mama ukinunua unga unanunua 50, na kwa sababu wewe ni mwanaume ukinunua unga unanunua 100. Hamna. Bills hazijui namna hiyo. School fees haijaandikwa kwa sababu wewe ni mtoto wa single mother ulipe 50%, ama single father ulipe 20%. School fees ni school fees, haijui hayo. So ile ningetaka kusema mimi kama kiongozi, ningetaka kuhimiza jinsia zote mbili, wa mama tutoke pia nje, tujaribu tutafute kazi, na pia tujaribu hizo biashara kidogo kama through the Hustler Fund tuweze kufanya, na tuweze kuleta ile support. Sisi wote wawili tuweze kusaidiana kwa sababu maisha imebadilika, changamoto zipo. So sisi tujaribu, nasema tujaribu tuweze kufanya. Vivyo hivyo vile dadangu aliweza kugusia, unapata saa zingine unapata mama anapanda cheo ama pesa zake ni kubwa, unapata ni kama kuna hiyo mwanamke kusikia amekuwa kichwa, amefika, haistahili. Ningependa kuwaomba wanaume waweze kushikilia wamama unazungumzia mabibi pale nyumbani, ama pia dada yako, waweze kuwapatia ile support, waweze kuwapatia ile moral, waweze kufanya kutoka pale nje na kufanya, ndio waweze kuleta hiyo effort yote pale nyumbani, na waweze kusaidiana. Because maisha ya sasa, hii mambo ya kusema sasa tukae nyumbani, vile tamaduni zimekuwa pale nyuma, vile wazazi wetu kitambo ilikuwa unapata mama hata akona watoto 10 na mzee ndiye anafanya kazi na wote wanasoma, wanafanya mambo. Sasa imebadilika. Tuweze kusapotiana, mama support mzee support mama, tuweze kusaidia upate tumeleta hiyo mapato nyumbani, tuweze kuendelesha na tuishi kwa furaha na amani, kwa sababu ndoto ya kila mtu ni kuwa na ile amani na kuwa na ile furaha. Hizi pesa hazitoshi, na sijui kama kuna mahali imeandikwa katika historia ya kwamba fedha zimefika mahali sasa zimetosha, sasa tukae. Hazitoshi. So lakini kuna ile kutosheka, unapata tunapunguza hii kupigana, tutapunguza hii kudhulumiana, tunapunguza matusi, kunapunguka hiyo economic. Unapata saa zingine hata tukizungumzia mambo ya economic issues, unapata mama lazima akae jinsi fulani, sasa mwanaume azidi sasa ku provide na mambo kama hayo. Lakini niwauliza wanaume, ukikosa kusupport mama, leo wewe uko kazini Rashid, na sio kwa kinywa changu, lakini kwa mfano ugonjeke, kesho uwezi enda kazi, changamoto imeingia, na ule mama hukuweza kumpatia ile support, kesho pia kitu kikukufanyikia, aweze kuwa pale, aweze kusaidia kufanya mawili matatu, na aweze kukusaidia. So ni vyema pia sisi wanaume tulete ile support, na pia mama tuwe tayari kuweza kuwa supported. Na hiyo tu ndio the basic ya most of solution ya kutatua some of these things.
Shikilia hapo mheshimiwa, najua Bi Lucy Mori unataka kuchangia kuhusiana na hilo, lakini wacha tumsikilize msikilizaji kwa dakika 2 hivi, alafu utashika kuanzia hapo. Naona ulikuwa unataka kuingilia swala hilo. Msikilizaji upande wa pili, Dora Manya, kama unatusikia, labda tumpishe naye msikilizaji apate nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza nasi kwenye mada hii hewani. Dora?
Yes, shukran sana Rashid. Tupokee simu chache kutoka kwa wasikilizaji na pia mwishoni nitauliza swali kwa ufupi tena sana. Radio Taifa, halo.
Halo Dora na Rashid na wageni, hamjambo?
Hatujambo.
Dora, mimi huwa saa nyingine kutaka kuchekesha maneno yangu, lakini siku ya Jumapili hukuogopa. Manake huwa mchungaji wa hali ya juu siku ile, Dora wewe.
Safi, swali lako kwa wageni ni lipi?
Wacha niulize wageni sasa.
Ndio.
Raume tuko mahali tumekaa, amepita mwanamke akitembea mtembeo ambao umetuchekesha, manake si ule wa kawaida. Huwa tumemfanyia dhulma, manake ameenda mwendo wa kimandingo, unaona, mpaka sisi tukangwa kicheko. Sasa huwa ni dhulma, tumemdhulumu.
Asante sana. Radio Taifa, halo.
Halo, jambo Dora Manya.
Si jambo.
Omar Baba Saina kutoka Lezosa Andikaondi. Wacha niulize mheshimiwa Tafisa Mutinda, kuna swali ningependa kumuuliza Je, yeye anatulaumu wasee tunapofanya hivi familia isifunjike? Kwa sababu niliona kuna mama moja mumewe alimkata mkono. Sasa tukaona heri familia ipaki kuliko kufunga mzee. Sasa hiyo tulifanya makosa.
Asante sana. Radio Taifa.
Yombo mtoto wa Kiafrika. Halo, swali lako? Mwana manifesto mwana wale ni kwa kila tematudi pinyore swadango kweni ni hili. Ripa ya hasara funds tunafurahia, lakini mbona hiyo ripa imekuwa chache sana, yani wiki 2 badala ya mwezi mmoja? Mshwari ni mwezi mmoja.
Asante sana, bila shaka. Na pia nikiuliza swali tu kwa haraka upesi, kuna taarifa ama ripoti ambayo imetolewa na Nairobi City County GBV Coordinator Roslyn Mukabana, ambaye amesema kwamba visa 1500 vya gender based violence vilishuhudiwa katika kaunti ya Nairobi kati ya mwezi Januari na mwezi Septemba, na pia kuna wavulana pale ndani na wasichana, wavulana 121. Je, wageni wetu wanafanya nini kuhakikisha kwamba pia wakati tunazungumzia dhulma hatumwachi nje mtoto kijana, na tuangazie sana mtoto wa kike?
Naam, shukran sana mwenzangu Dora upande wa pili na wasikilizaji wetu. Labda tu nikianza na Bi Lucy Moria, ule Mohamed Dao kutoka Tana River ameuliza kuhusiana na wanawake wakati mwingine wanapopita huwa wanatingisha ardhi, alafu vijana wanafanya miondoko yao. Je, pia hii ni dhulma?
Can you repeat?
Ameuliza kwamba wanaume waweza kuwa wamekaa mahali, mwanamke akapita, tukaanza kumcheka ama kumzungumza vile anavotembea, anavotingisha. Je, hii pia tunamdhulumu kijinsia?
Kabisa. Hiyo ni dhuluma. Hata kuna benye unaweza kumwangalia na suggestive eyes, that is dhuluma. I don't know vile sheria yetu inakuwa hapa mheshimiwa, lakini kwa area zingine hiyo ni dhuluma. Vile unaweza kuangalia mtu kimadharau ama suggestively ama kumucheka akipita, hiyo ni dhuluma, kwa sababu hujui kama ni kutembea kwake kuko hivyo, so una feel hiyo ina affect, kwa sababu ina affect your ego, ina affect your confidence, so utaogopa. Hiyo ni dhuluma, ndio. Ndio.
Mheshimiwa, kuna swali lilielekezwa kwako kutokana na Omar kule Nandi, nadhani umeninakili. Omar kutoka Nandi aliuliza kwamba kidogo unawashambulia wazee, na akatoa mfano wa kisa ambacho kilitokea kwamba watu wasema afadhali familia ibakie lakini mzee aliyefanya hivi aondoke. Je, swala hilo unalizungumzia vipi? Anahisi kwamba kidogo mnaekelea wanaume kuhusiana na masuala haya dhuluma za kijinsia.
Rashid, ningetaka kuelewa hilo swali. Anasema wanaume, anasema
kwamba kidogo umeshambulia wanaume kiumpango mmoja ama mwingine. Na anasema kwamba katika familia vipo visa ambavyo hutokea kama hivyo. Na mtu anasema afadhali tudili na huyu mwanaume lakini familia ikue, mbona huyu mwanaume ndo afanyiwe?
Nikianzia niseme ya kwamba one, nimekuwa na support issues za familia. Na nikizungumzia familia sio mtu mmoja, ni mume na mke wote wawili. Na nime support sana wanaume nikisema ndio vichwa, wapewe heshima yao. Okay, sisi wanawake ndio shingo. Swala ya kwamba mwanaume yeye afinyiliwe pale ama achukue ile punishment, itategemea. Kama wewe ndio umekosa kama mwanaume, utapata ile punishment sababu sheria inasema lazima mtu akue apatiwe punishment yake. Kama ni mama pia amekosea, pia yeye atapatiwa ile punishment yake. So itategemea nani mwenye makosa. Kwa hivyo kama ni mwanaume apewe, lakini kama si yeye astahili. Sheria iko na ina wembe pande zote mbili, ina protect pande zote mbili. Lakini mimi yangu sana naimiza familia wote wawili, kwa sababu kama mmoja analegea, hapo hakuna familia. Lakini wakati wote wawili wanaweza kuelewana na wanaweza kupeana heshima istahili. Na nanisisitiza na narudia, ndugu yangu, nikimjibu hiyo swali, nimesema wanaume ndio vichwa, wapewe heshima yao. Wamama ndio wanawake ni shingo, wazidi kushikilia. Na tukiweza kupeana hiyo space namna hiyo, utapata tutazidi kusonga, kwa sababu sana zingine shida zinaletwa kwa sababu unapata pia ule mama anataka ndio kuwa ndio kichwa, ndio anakuwa ndio anasema kila wakati wote, na hapo ndio inaleta mgogoro, kwa sababu vile tamaduni zimelea mwanaume, mtoto wa kiume that is, zinasema ya kwamba ndiye anafaa kuwa ndume, ndiye anafaa kuwa anashikilia. Kwa hivyo wapewe nafasi zao za articulate zile kuwa kichwa katika ile boma.
Dakika zetu zinakimbia kama maji mtoni. Mwenzangu upande wa pili, mwanzo kuna ule msikilizaji aliyeuliza kuhusiana na swala la Hustler Fund, lakini nadhani kosha ligusia. Lakini mwenzangu upande wa pili ametoa mfano akisema hapa jijini Nairobi kuna ile ripoti ambayo imesema kwamba visa 1500 vimeripotiwa vya dhuluma za kijinsia kati ya Januari na Septemba, na miongoni ni wanaume 121. Je, nyinyi kama viongozi pia swala hili mnalifanyia kazi vipi?
So nafasi yangu,
endelea tu.
Kwanza nitaongea juu ya Hustler Fund. Huko niuliza, lakini nataka kuchangia ni support ndanda yangu.
Umechukua ngapi?
Nini? So kuwa na Hustler Fund si kitu mbaya, it's a good idea. Lakini remember tumekuwa na hizi funds, every government inakuja na fund. Tumekuwa na women fund, tumekuwa na youth fund, tumekuwa na CDF, tumekuwa na hiyo ngafu. Pesa majina ni tofauti. Chenye naweza sema ni majina tu inageuka. The question is, wewe sahizi ukule lottery, wekewe mamilioni hapa kingafla, na ukuwa na huo mpango ubenye unapemepangia. Sahizi mimi nina mjengo inaendelea, ninajua inindi hii simiti ya nindi hii this, nilikuwa na mpangilio. If I get my money, this is what I'm going to do. Chenye naweza sema, hata kama tuko na shinda economic, tunaweza hata kuharibu hata hiyo shinda ikue zaidi. Kwa sababu ukienda uchukue hiyo pesa kwanza vile inakuja kiharaka, na sikia inawekwa kwa simu, inaingia hapo na hukuwa na mpango, unaenda kuwatch mpira, mimi nakwambia utaikula utaikunywa yote, na tumeona itayo tayari. Chenye ningeuliza rais wetu, chenye nimeuliza wale wanahusika, hii pesa sio mpya, it's just a name that are changed. Kama tunataka kuempower wa mama na youth yetu through easy funds, hawa mama kwanza na vijana wanahitaji kitu inaitwa skills. Ni lazima ufundishwe na uone ni kitu gani ambayo itaingiana na hiyo pesa yako. Ni lazima ukuwe na skills fulani, si kuchukua pesa tu bila mpango. Ni lazima kama ni biashara ndogo ndogo, wamama wanafanywa trainings kulingana na uwezo, kulingana na ile area wewe uko expert in. Kuna vijana hata wanafanya hata mambo ya social media vizuri, vijana wa IT. Kuna venye wanaweza fundishwa na wakuja wa form hata industry moja mzuri pamoja, kuliko hiyo pesa ndogo waangaliwe kulingana na uwezo wao. kama ni hiyo wakuwe na industry ambayo hata inaweza kuajiri, kwa sababu hata sio kila mtu wa biashara. Kuna watu wengine who cannot work on their own, wanaweza fanya wakiwa under somebody. Kuna watu wengine kazi yao they can even employ others. Kwa hivyo hawa mama, hawa vijana waangaliwa kulingana na uwezo wao before we dish the money. Kuna wengine tayari walikuja na wakakula. Kuna mwingine atachukua sahi anunue nguo za Christmas. Kuna mwingine sahi anataka kuwa na sherehe. Na ni ukweli, that is the truth, kwa sababu kama una mpango. So hivi ile ningeomba rais wetu, kwa sababu mpango ni mzuri na pesa ziko, pesa isikuwe dished just like that. Watu wapewe skills, wafundishwe kulingana na area yao, na mheshimiwa hata ukienda Senate muongee hiyo, muone venye wananchi wanaweza pewa hiyo skills ambaye ukichukua pesa unajua kweli. Mimi vijana wengi hata mtu anachukua anakimbia kuchukua pikipiki kwa sababu ameona wengine wako nayo. Although hata iwezi nunua pikipiki, maximum I think ni 50k. Lakini kuna venye wanaweza hata chukua 3 4 na wakuwe na ka industry yao fulani. Wamama washikane, kila mtu akichukua yake walete pamoja. Wanaweza kufanya hata mahali ya kupikia mandazi, that is an industry. Mahali wana produce something. Hii pesa ni mingi sana kuharibiwa tu ovyo ovyo. And then 2027 tuseme pia kuna fund ingine sio inaitwa nani, inaitwa nini, hii majina tu ni tofauti, watu wapewe skills. Hapo ndio niko. Na hapo ndio ninge advise my president, hata angenipatia hiyo kazi mimi ningemfanyia hiyo.
So unaomba kazi
hata hiyo iko. So ingine mahali ya ile shinda tulikuwa tunaongelelea, lack of communication is another problem. Unaona watu kama polisi pia, there is misuse of arms. Kila wakati anaamuka anapiga wewe boss, anaterembuka kwa kambi yao huko nyuma kwa manyumba, anapiga laini yote, anaua watu. Iko shinda. Nimeongea hata nao mapolisi wengine wanasema hiyo communication is not there. So una ile tabia ya kiukoloni ile ilikuwa kama wewe ni boss, wewe ni commandant, you are unreachable. So communication must be there. Kuna lugha hata ile unaongelesha watoto na ile unaongelesha watu kama wewe ni tofauti. Hata askari hao ti watoto pia they need also their privacy. Na hata hizo vitu inademean them. Nimetembea hata hizi makambi yao, ukienda kule unakuta nyumba mpaka saa hii inakatwa na pavia. Yes, na mzee ako hapa, mwingine ako hapa, alafu uko na umri wa 50 years, mwingine ako 30 years. You are sharing a room.
Shikilia hapo mheshimiwa, hilo ni swala jingine, nitakuita siku nyingine tuje tulizungumzie kwa kipana, lakini tuna dakika 3.
It is a course. Yes.
Tuna dakika 3 tu kuweza kumaliza kipindi. Saa 3 kamili ni taarifa ya habari, lakini kuna swala muhimu siweze kuliacha. Hizi peace initiatives, na inasemekana kwamba wanawake mmekuwa katika mstari wa mbele katika swala zima hili la uongozi, lakini hamuonekani katika kupalilia masuala ya amani, angalau kupunguza masuala haya ya dhulma za kijinsia. Nikianza na mheshimiwa, dakika yako 1.5, alafu nirudi kwake Lucy, dakika yake 1.5.
Niseme ya kwamba wanawake wamekuwa kipaumbele Rashid, focus na hii issue ya peace. Na wamejitokeza sana na wamekuwa wakijaribu sana ensure zile bylaws ambazo zipo zinazingatiwa. Na tukimalizia kwa sababu muda unayoyoma, ningependa kusema ya kwamba sisi kama viongozi tutazidi kuhimiza sheria ziweze kufuatwa, na pia ziweze kwa kizungu wanasema ziwe tightened. Upate ni sheria ambazo hakuna mtu angetaka kufanya hayo makosa, kwa sababu nayo ile sheria iko pale ni more tough sana, kwa sababu hiyo ndio itaweza kupunguza hizi visa, kwa sababu ni visa za action, ni visa za mtu kufanya. So the jinsi nzuri ya kupunguza hizi shida ni ensure kwamba kuna sheria ambazo ziko juu, ziko very tight, upate ya kwamba hakuna mtu anataka kufanya makosa kama hayo. Lakini viongozi na serikali pia iko kipaumbele, na vile ulisema tuko na this the 16 days na with that the advocacy, na that is why hata sisi leo tuko hapa, na nakushukuru sana na your team kuweza kuweka hiyo nafasi ya kuzungumzia jambo hili, kwa sababu ni jambo ambalo lipo na ni jambo ambalo zinazidi kuzungumziwa. Sheria ziko, tumesema kuna the katiba iko, kuna the penal codes, kuna the sexual offense bill 206 ndio kindumu, na sheria ipo, na sababu ni sheria imekuja na ikatungwa, na tunazidi sisi kuensure ya kwamba ile sheria iko more tightened, na hivyo itaweza kusuluhisha. Lakini la kumalizia niseme ya kwamba kama kiongozi, familia sisi kama viongozi tujaribu pia tushikane kama wamama pia tuweze kusupport na tuoneshe wamama njia ambazo zinalofaa la kuweza kupeana ile morali ya the familyness na ile support ambazo zinazofaa, na through that tutaweza kupunguza maneno kama haya. Na boy child hajasaulika, tunaona zile shida pia boy child anaanza kupitia, lakini tunaomba sana upate ya kwamba waweze take advantage ya the funds ambazo serikali inapeana, waweze make their minds so busy kwa sababu ya kuingia katika biashara hizi zenye wanaweza fanya.
Asante, naona jamaa kule wanataka kunitafuna. Na Bilusi, mkimaliziana wewe.
Mimi nikimaliziana nasema hiyo nimeongea ya hustler fund ichukuliwe muhimu, na pia watu wakuwe na communication in their places of work na hata nyumbani ni muhimu, kwa sababu kama kitu iko communicated haina ubaya. Communication ni important. Na pia nitamalizia nikisema our nation is mentally sick. Watu wengi ni wagonjwa seriously, mental health tunataka tuichukulie muhimu, si kusema tunafanya kampeni ya malaria ishe, na hapa watu wako na ugonjwa wa mental depression. So tunataka tukue na counselors wengi, na hata sio watu wengi Kenya hata wanaendanga kuchukua hiyo masomo. It's very important. Kama ni kila kampuni, sijui kama hapa kwenu KBC mko naye, mnatakana mkie nao. Nikimalizia kuna group ingine inaitwa the older persons. Tumeongea sana juu ya wamama, disability, vijana, awe yote, lakini kuna hii group nikimalizia ya elderly persons, people who are retired and older, they are also forgotten. We need to remember them, and that is also another group I'm championing for at Lucy Moria Network.
Asante mheshimiwa, naona pia GBV nafanyiwa upande wa pili na waelekezi wangu wakiongozwa na mkuu wangu wa kitengo Geoffrey Onditi, ndo na mimi nisiende mahakamani, wacha nikatize. Mtazamaji, basi kufikia hapa tunabudi kulikunja jamvi la kipindi Good Morning Kenya kupitia runinga yako unaipenda ya KBC Channel 1 na KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya. Upande wa pili yuko mzee wa kazi John Angari tuletee taarifa ya habari. Kwa niaba ya nyote ambao mmefanikisha kipindi hiki, wapigia picha wangu hapa ndani ya studio, wageni wangu hapa ndani ya studio, nitatafuta siku nyingine, bado mambo ya kuzungumza ni mengi, muda tundo mchache. Asante sana Ben Kamuti, mwelekezi upande wa runinga, na waelekezi wangu wakuu upande wa radio Bilusi wa Home na Geoffrey Onditi, bila kumsahau ndugu yangu Kimani na kikosi chako kizima cha upande wa radio masuala ya kiufundi. Mimi nimekuwa mtangazaji wako, jina langu naitwa Rashid Momkondo, na kuregesha upande wa pili ambapo mwenzangu Dora Manya yuko standby kutuletea taarifa ya habari, na upande mwingine wenzangu kina Doreen na kina Victor Lo kwenye Good Morning Kenya wanaendelea. Asante.
Feel the excitement. Relish every moment. Get 1.5 GB at 50 bob. Valid for 3 hours. Furahia futa. Dial *544#. Make Chaguo smarter na Airtel, the most affordable network.
Controlled and has been judged to be illegal. Good turn and a shot on the left foot, just blocked by the goalkeeper. Bulaidia almost opening the scores here as Jordan Pickford just puts his left hand out and pushes the ball back into play. Quite unexpectedly, Saka tried to get the ball back to his defenders, but a good through ball for Bulaidia, Jacob.
Well, very good shot by Dia, troubling Pickford in that goal, but a very good save by Pickford because that was goal bound for sure.
Puts his left hand out.
When I don't think you're Puna Moranga. Shoro FM. Wenyere Nanyuki. Shoro FM. Naikuru Naivashanya Hururu. Shoro FM. Motari Mohoro Onanyebo. Shoro FM. Odi Kereria.
We can get Kalasha to the prestige that is the Oscars.
But what Kalasha is doing, and it's been 12 years now running, is beyond just a passion project.
And broadcasters, wherever they are, I'm also calling on them to be able to share Kenyan stories.
Thank you so much for this platform.
I do for the culture, Mimi.
Shin City was an actual city, or rather an artistic representation of one.
I want to build something for my people.
Few hours into his performance, Femi One, in her usual colorful self, rocked up on stage and absolutely wrecked their performance off properly. Pamoja Dancing Group, in conjunction with Eric Langex, a lifetime coach and a dancing choreographer for people living with disability all the way from France, organized a special event.
With disability ama mtu aliye na maumbile tofauti, kwanza ni akubali alivyo.
Ai, venye ina slap kishash, kishash, kishash.
From the gender-based violence conversation there, we now train our focus to investment and savings. That is what you're set to converse in the next 40 minutes. I'm holding court with Cynthia Wamboi to my extreme left, who is marketing and community lead at KOA. Right next to her is Delilah Kidanu, who's the COO KOA. Welcome to the program, ladies.
Thank you.
Hey, it is in the unison in thank you. Thank you. Right, let me start with you, Delilah. Just talk to us about the relationship between investment and savings. How similar or how different are they?
Yeah, so savings definitely is something when you're putting your money away and trying to put it away for an emergency or a future kind of event. And when you're looking at saving, you also need to incorporate some type of investment into that. So at KOA, we kind of blend the two. So making sure that you're able to save and have some type of interest on that savings so you're not losing the value of your savings.
So there's actually a bit of a difference.
Yes, for sure.
Between what savings is and what investment is. And we'll come to delve deeper momentarily as we head on with this conversations. But Cynthia, you are the marketing and community lead at KOA. What exactly do you do? What does your role entail? Because this is more of like just trying to understand what we can do, even just as Kenyans, to increase our savings.
Yeah. So at KOA, basically what I do is I try to sell the products and show people the value of saving and investing their money. So I do that by teaching people about finances through the articles we write and the webinars that we also do for our customers. Yes.
I like that you do teaching So you can really teach us how we can increase an uptake on savings and investment.
Yes.
But again, when you talk about savings, Delilah, and investment, just where do we start from? Because you realize there's a lot of information. People really understand that it's important to save, but the level or the percentage at which we know we should save does not equalize to actually people saving and investing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. I think something we've seen is firstly on the education side, which is briefly what Cynthia mentioned. So there's a lack of information on how do we save, how do we know how much we should save, where can we save. So I think when you're looking at savings in the first place, you need to have a goal, right? So we need to...
That's a starting point.
That's the starting point.
You just don't decide, you know, I'm earning 10,000, for instance, I'll be saving 2,000. You just don't start from that.
No, because then you don't have something to work towards, right? So at least that's our philosophy. So if you have, for example, a goal, so some people might have an emergency as a goal, so any future health emergency or something that could come up, they save for that. If you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a motorbike, all of those are goals and they're attainable and you can work towards them. In having that goal, you're also motivated to keep saving and to make sure that you're putting money away every month instead of doing something else with it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Do you think that is one of the things that we miss oftentimes, having that particular goal? You do a lot of teaching through the webinars, as you've said, and articles, and maybe you can just tell us perhaps also what you've drawn. Is it one of the things that we miss so that then we just feel like we hear a lot of conversations on savings? I need to save for my betterment.
Yeah.
Do we miss on the goal aspect?
Yeah, we do. Because as she's mentioned, having a goal makes you very intentional with your saving. Otherwise, then you're just doing it to do it. And in a situation like that, you find people pinch money out of their savings because you don't have an actual intention for that goal that, or yeah, you know. So what we've seen is people just save money. They just put it so that at the back of their minds they know they have money somewhere. But from the stories they tell you that, oh, something came up, I had to pinch. But if you have an intentional goal towards your saving, you'll know that this is for my car and I cannot pinch it so that I can go out with my friends, or unless it's an emergency, like a dying emergency, but like, yeah. So intentions is important.
You want to chime on that?
Yes. I think it's also about like the behavior. So when we first started like looking into the space, we're looking at how do people spend their money and why do they spend it so impulsively. And we realized
impulsive is the word.
And the reason behind that is because you get this instant gratification, you know. It's like, okay, I bought this new phone or I bought this nice meal, I'm so happy, I'm overjoyed, right? It's very instant. Whereas saving, it's a little bit more delayed and you have to get comfortable with saying, okay, I'm going to forego today's enjoyment, but next year or like later in the year, I'm going to have double or triple because I'll be able to kind of invest in what I want to do or what I want to have. So it's really like psychological as well when you're looking at how you like structure and start to save for your like future.
But they just said life is for the living, you know.
But how will you live when you don't have money? How will you live when you're overspending?
And also that time when you really can't actively work, for instance,
Yes.
you're saving towards pension, for example. But also, talk to me about like the steps of even just coming up with a goal, because I mean you've just given very good examples. There's so many things that one would want to do. I'd want to buy a house, I'd want to buy a car, I'd want to save for pension, I'd want to so many things. So then what is the best strategy? So then you have a clear goal. This tied down with the aspect of I wouldn't like want to save for a car and then I see some good house and I realize, wait, I'd want to actually start with the house before the car. Or I don't see like some nice set of clothes and I realize maybe we can actually do with the clothes, then we can do the car later. How do you do that?
I think it starts from where you are in life. What situation you're in life, what you need, and what's achievable. So, for example, a person who's like in their entry-level career, maybe they live at home, and their biggest goal is, or like at the back of their minds, they know they need to move out of home. So you start from there, like what you think you need in the moment, where you are, and what's achievable for you. So that's what you look at. A person who has kids and you live in an apartment and you're trying to move them to, maybe you feel like they need space to play. So I think you start from where you are, you look at your situation, what will fit for your financial habit and your financial future. Then you create a goal from there.
I hear you.
Yes.
I want to come to you, Delilah, on budgeting, but before I get to do that, let me just pick your brain on this particular one. Now that you've talked about starting from where you are,
yes.
I have had,
yes.
perhaps you can elucidate and give a clear guide because you're in the market.
Okay.
But there's this notion that young people really just want to sort of like focus on want to buy land, build house. There's some quarters that would say, first of all, look at how you can grow yourself even career-wise, build on that before you actually get into these other things.
Yes.
But then one would assume and one would say, I'm thinking towards the future, much as I could be young. How do you draw the line and just how do you demarcate so that then you don't do this at the expense of something else?
Well, same thing still comes back to where you are. I mean, if you're a person who...
I mean, I could be where I am, could be I'm young.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of wanting to buy land and construct and build, but then like I said, some quarters are saying, you know, you're still too young for that. So how do you
I think with that you look at what the market is saying, because when it comes to investments and savings, you just do not blindly go and do things. You do your research, you do your due diligence, look at what the market is saying. In the next 5 years, will this piece of land appreciate? Then yes, you can pause what you're doing and concentrate on buying that piece of land and maybe planting something. The trees that you need in the next 6 years will give you mad money, you know. So I think you look at what the market is saying, you look at yourself, you look at what you want, then go ahead and enjoy and procure.
Regardless of the conversation, still starts from inward.
It starts
and
from
what you
all
seek
inward,
to
yes.
benefit.
Yeah.
I think also on that, it's about what you can do within your means. So for example, if you have a salary of like 50K or 100K and you look at a piece of land and you figure out a mortgage or a way that you can buy this land on a loan, and you can repay that loan comfortably while living your life on your current salary.
Regardless of age.
Regardless of age. Why should age play a role, right?
I don't even know. I'm telling you, this
No
daytime
way.
you meet people and age is really, you're too young. And you're thinking, okay, so if you're too young for this, why do you want to do it when you're old?
No, imagine that you could start when you're like 23, 24. By the time you're 50, you're finished paying your loans, you own everything, you know, you're in a much better place. I think what happens is because financial literacy, we're not really taught when we're in school. So if you go to primary school, secondary school, even by university, I've never sat down and had a class where someone walked me through, this is how you get a mortgage, this is how you can plan for it, this is how you can structure your finances. But if we had that, I think more young people would actually see the benefit of getting into a mortgage or getting into, you know, some type of loan for a longer term, because now your salary will only increase, right? When you go from your first job to your second job to your third job, if you can make a mortgage work with your first salary, imagine your second salary, your third salary, you know, you're only going to improve. So I think starting young is actually much better.
And there's nothing wrong with starting young.
There's nothing.
If you have it, go for it.
The earlier the better.
Why would you want to wait until you're 30, 40 when you have the capacity, for instance?
Yeah,
100%. Something.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, but there's something else. This has just sort of like left my mind. Yeah, the budgeting and investing and saving. Which one is better then?
Well,
should I jump in? Or
you see, investments are more of asset buying, right?
Okay.
And savings are more of putting your money in a product like a bank or like core, right? So it depends with the money you have. That's one. It controls a lot of where to put your money. Like, if you have a lot of money and, you know, we're looking at the future, long-term kind of thing, we're talking about an investment, an asset, mortgage.
So not saving per se at that point.
And then another thing is you can save for an investment. Like you can save your money, let it grow on core, then get an investment, buy an asset. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But I think to a certain extent there are different ways. Like savings is, okay, you're putting your money away and perhaps you're saving in a bank, perhaps you're saving in a chama or a sacco, but ultimately your savings, you always want your savings to earn interest, right? Otherwise there's no point in putting your money somewhere when you have a high inflation rate and every day you're losing value on your savings. So savings should most likely always be coupled with some type of investment. That's why you'll see people going to asset managers. That's why you'll see people going to SACCOs, because ultimately you're saving, but the investment vehicle's in the background. So for example, if you come onto KOA, you set up your savings goal, you deposit your funds there, your money is being invested, and you as a saver, you're also getting interest back. So at least you can, your money will not depreciate as much every day or every month.
I hear you. So then I'd want to get your account on this one, since you largely deal with an entity that's more into savings, and this is something that our president has constantly talked about. In fact, he's just trying to look for ways in which we can move from external borrowing and see how we can borrow internally to manage our own future projects. And to this effect, he also talked about increase of NSSF, a bit of increase of NHI for those that earn 100,000 and above. Just the other day when Hustler Fund was being launched, 5% of what you borrow in this personal product product that was launched, 5% of it goes to savings. And in fact, that out of that 5% which goes into savings, 70% of that 5% goes into long-term savings. 30% goes into short-term savings. So when you look at some of these projects being proffered by the government, and also looking at entities such as you, which focus largely on savings, and I mean, in a long-term projection, do you actually think as a country we can achieve that savings that he's constantly talked about? Because again, he also mentioned that in the East African bloc, we are doing so badly when it comes to savings. Let me start with you on that one.
For sure. I definitely think there's a large capacity for savings in Kenya. I think we've seen that people are actively saving, right? But it's not in it's not a very formalized type of saving.
So we're saving informally?
Exactly. Okay. So there's many chamas. I think every individual you meet is maybe in like 2-3 chamas saving for something, right? But that doesn't come into the more formal sector. And I think that's now where the gap between financial literacy and also understanding how best to invest that money, because we are pooling a lot of money into groups, but we're not investing that, or we're not putting it into instruments that'll provide us interest. So I really like the initiative. I think trying to get savings on the radar for every household is very important, especially coming out of COVID and kind of the economy being a bit shaky. It's very important to have those savings. But I think that the way that we get people to save, we need to look at different types of incentives and different ways to encourage people to save, but also managing that with the economy and food prices and everything going up. We need to try and find a balance of how much people can actually save and incentivize that. And I really like the incentive that they're putting in place to match savings. I don't know if they've officially launched that, but I think that would be a fantastic way.
So that then you save like 50, they match that.
Exactly.
50, and or in the long term you actually get to benefit from that. And I'll get your account on the same, but you talked about incentives, and this is just one product that you've also touched on, which is featuring the Hustlers Fund. So again, even moving forward for bigger perhaps financial lenders or institutions like maybe the banks or even SACCOs, is this one of those directions that perhaps we can take? Because I know at KOA you do the same. There's that incentive. Is this a direction you should take so that then one also sees the benefit and need of I'm saving because actually it's important?
Yes, definitely. I think there's different types of financial profiles, right? There's the person who knows exactly what they want in 10 years and they're going to be focused on that,
regardless
and drill down.
of whether there's an incentive or
not. Regardless, right? But then you have people who need to be incentivized, people who need to be this is for your betterment. So I think that financial products need to work for people. People don't need to work for financial products, right? So at KOA, yes, we have our financial application, so you can save, you can structure your savings, but we've also realized that incentivizing people to save, interest is not enough, right? There needs to be, they need to see the future of why they're saving. They need to understand what they'll gain by doing it. So we recently launched a kind of more gamified product. So it's called Save to Win. So every week or every day you can save your funds and you get into a draw. So it's more like a game. And we incentivize you every week. So you have the opportunity to win a grand prize at the end of the week, which, we've had a couple of winners now and I think they're enjoying it.
They're loving it.
Yeah.
I mean, in the long term, Cynthia, is this something we need to be looking into so that we can uptake and increase our savings as a country? It's just so much to talk about it and give the figures and statistics, but how do we bridge the gap between talking about it and actually implementing it?
I think the only gap that's in Kenya right now is knowledge. It's literacy, because
people don't have the information.
Yeah, people don't have the information, and without the information, people will not see the value of, even if we incentivize your savings and we tell you this save to win, save money to win money, there's core, organize your goals. If you do not know why it's important for you and your future, people will not take part in this. So once we've hacked financial literacy, once people have started being taught in schools, in unis, that you know what, when you get out there, you can take a good loan that's going to help you, or you can save money starting from now with the little that your parents are giving you, and every day put in some money and save, you know. Once people are taught and understand the value of why we should save money, trust me, as a country, we'll hack it. We'll become the East African country that they all want to be.
Yeah. You don't have to rely on money
loans,
from outside. You can do your own project.
Exactly.
But allow me to be the devil's advocate on this one, Cynthia. And to some extent, maybe I would agree with when you say there's no proper financial literacy, just alluding what Delilah said, Delina said, it's Delilah, yes, sorry, said earlier.
Yeah.
But looking at what is currently in the market, haven't we had enough talks of why you should save so that then this informs the kind of information you would have as an individual, for us to say there's no proper knowledge or information on financial literacy?
I don't think so. Because then if people have been talked to enough about finances, we would see it from our end.
Do you think that's not that we just see it, or there's just a lot that we are reeling with and going through that you don't see?
The need to save.
Yes, I know I need to save. Okay. I have been taught, maybe not in school, but to some extent life has taught me, or you, the way you are here, you have taught me. I've read somewhere. So I even understand the importance of it.
I think in situations like those, you know, it also starts from where you come from, how your parents have raised you, how you've seen their culture.
Has a play on this.
A lot. If you've seen your parents being spendthrifts and you've seen them struggling with money, or let me give an example.
Yes.
A person who's seen their parents struggle with finances and being in situations where she or he wouldn't want to be right now, a person like that is very cautious with their money. A person like that will not overspend. A person like that will want a better future and will be very intentional. But a person who has a silver platter and, you know, has seen how good life can be, I mean, they know they can always go back home. Or so I feel like it goes back to how are we raised, how have you seen money being spent or transacted at home. At the end of the day, money is psychological. So what you've seen is what you grow into, and that's why, in as much as I understand we are going through so much as a country and inflation and all that, but yeah, it goes back to how have you seen money being spent
growing up.
Yeah, growing up.
And you know, just saying money psychological, you sort of orient my next question, and I want to pose it to you, Delilah. So then, what does personality, or how does personalities play when it comes to even investing or saving altogether?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really understanding your type of money personality.
Okay.
So are you a spender? Are you impulsive? Are you cautious? Do you save a lot? Because you can do different things to help yourself in that way.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're more of an impulsive spender, then you maybe don't keep so much M-Pesa available or create a barrier, you know.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got M-Pesa, it was just too easy for me, and I just would spend, and then I realized that I need a block. So I keep very little on my M-Pesa, and if I need to make a purchase,
because you've understood your personality.
I understand, yeah. I had to go to my bank, then I have to initiate with like a movement, and then it takes time, and then by then, you know, I've thought about the purchase. I'm not really going to make it anymore.
And the process just drains you already.
Yeah, just like, do I really want this? So I think you also need to understand yourself a little bit and also understand what you want. And sometimes, also alluding to the question to Cynthia, sometimes your like market, your area also plays a role. So even if you have a personality where you're, you know, very stringent and you have a goal, you know what you're doing, it might be that, you know, things cost a lot, or, you know, now the things that you were able to afford you can't afford anymore, but you can't really make a difference because you've committed. So in some instances your personality does play a role to get you to that point of discipline and create your kind of money flow, what you're doing every month with your income or week, depending where you work or how you get your income. But there are also external factors that play a role that you need to kind of take into account.
I hear you.
Yeah, and also one thing that people need to understand is you need to be honest with yourself. Because one thing people they're not honest. There's that perception they want to have about who they are when it comes to how they spend their money. and there's the real one of who they actually are. So sit down and be honest with yourself. How are you with your money? Leave alone that thing that you think, that you keep thinking at the back of your mind, that's me in future. Right now, how are you? Are you that big spender? You know, are you cautious? If you're cautious, okay, how can I better myself, even grow my money even more? You know, so honesty with where you are and who you are with your finances also will play a big role. Yes.
It just like reminds me, you know, the first 2 days after this particular fund was launched, you would listen to stories done by various journalists where Kenyans would say, I just wanted to take that 500, 600 bob to just actually ascertain if it works for one, and then two, just, I didn't even have a plan with it. Just want to buy something. To just actually feel I bought something. So you realize you were taking money, but with zero plan in it. And I want to imagine this actually extrapolates even to people borrowing big amounts of money, huge sums. You know, just want to borrow with no clear plan and guide. And sometimes because maybe you don't have a goal, so then one would want to imagine, yes, goal is important, but which other factors inform your saving or your investment, so that when you borrow money, whether it's from digital lender or the banks, whichever financial institution, it actually heads over to its intended purpose. Let me get your brain on that one.
I think another factor that plays a big role with how you interact with money, besides you having
only just a goal,
I feel like once you've started from a goal, the other factors will come into play. Because once you have your goal with how you want, for example, to get that hustler fund, right? You get the hustler fund and you sit down, and if you don't have a plan, you'll go and spend. Like as we've heard on the radio, the lady was saying, like, you get the hustler fund, you did not have a plan, you go and watch football, you bet all of it, right? So it starts from you planning yourself. What do you want with your money in the future? Where do you see yourself? You don't even have to look as far as 5 years. Let's say in 2 years, what do you want? So you have to, that's like one of the biggest factors, your future plan, your future intention. If you do not have that in mind, then most of the times you'll find your finances will scatter because you're just doing to do.
Just doing to do.
Yeah, and maybe to add there, I think also when we talk about like the future and planning, it doesn't always have to be big. I think that sometimes we also, a lot of what we hear at COA is that like, oh, I actually don't have enough to save. And when we kind of drill deeper, we're like, what is enough? You know, it's like, oh, I don't have thousands. But like actually savings, you start from very small, right? Like savings is savings. Anything you can put away is more that you would have tomorrow than you would otherwise. So I think like starting with a plan just gives you that vision of where you're going. So whether it's like a bigger purchase, like you want to take a mortgage, or you want to be able to, you know, buy like a stove or something for your house, they both have merit, and you can start small. You can start with 100 shillings a week if that's what you have. You can start with 50 shillings a day if that's what you have. But the thing is about making momentum towards putting money away. And like you imagine if like 1 million people put like a shilling a day, you know, that it adds up. So I think like you just need to look at like the bigger picture and start to, you know, just start somewhere. And that 10 shillings or 50 shillings you're putting today, it'll continue to grow. And eventually you'll be able to put more and more, but just be like starting a bit small with that vision in mind, I think is very important.
I hear you. And I would want us to exit this space without talking about budgeting. Budgeting is very key because there's so much to talk about. The savings, investing and spending, but you already have the money, whether you borrowed from whichever form or it is money that you've earned at the end of the month. How do you start to budget? What do you start with? And this take cognizant of the fact that we are just saying right now that where we are as a country, the cost of living is no one to just play around with. So how do you start budgeting? So then you ensure everything goes to its intended purpose, and you also keep some that you would save, which will ultimately inform how you invest in the future.
I think budgeting is very important. I must say that it's a tough process, but if you do it and you do it right, like you get a lot of clarity. And it's also, I think as Cynthia said, it's like one of the best ways to be completely honest with yourself, because the numbers won't lie. So I think the first thing is just to get everything on the table, right? So you just say, okay, in November, let me pull out everything that I've spent. So let's see my M-Pesa receipts, let's see my bank receipts, and let's just list them all out and see how much was spent and what went where. Because that's when you'll now have a better picture of how much you're spending in which category, and try to put them into buckets now. There's a saying that always goes like, pay yourself first, and that's, pay your savings first, right? So once you understand how much you need for the next month, you know how much is coming in, the first thing you do is take that lump sum and put it away. Now you just pretend
Wait a minute, let me just understand this. What you're putting away is what you're putting for savings.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And once you do that, then you have the rest to play with, right? And that's now to cover your bills, to have your enjoyment.
What percentage are we talking about here?
So it really differs. It differs on how much you earn. It differs where you live. On average, they say about 20 to 30% should go into savings per month.
Of your total
your total income per month. But again, that might not be sustainable for you. It might be more, it might be less. But you'll only find that out once you look at your budget and see what is going where.
How easy is it to stay consistent on that budgeting? Taking on the account, we just talked about inflation, quickly going up sometimes. At times things are just stagnant. At times things are going down. At times you just really can't even make sense of what is happening. So how do you stay consistent on that budget?
I think what kind of makes you stay consistent with your budget is, before you created that budget, you were honest with yourself. You knew what you wanted, and you had a goal for you having a budget, right? So once that is clear, trust me, you will not have a... Trust me.
Sure?
I know things come up, mid-month things happen. Maybe if you have a car, you got an accident, or you had to go for servicing, stuff happens. But a person who is clear, who is intentional, who is financially literate, and who knows what they want with their money, once you've created that budget and you are honest with yourself, you will be consistent, because you'll start seeing the fruits of your savings, your budgeting. And once you, trust me, once you get into that momentum, you don't want to ruin it, because it's a process. And eventually you want to become a champion of finances. So I think it starts from yourself, and that clear goal that you had from the start.
You've kept referencing the goal, which is so important. That is.
I think maybe just to add there, I think you mentioned something very important, like inflation and prices going up. I think what budgeting also allows you to do is to figure out what your personal inflation rate is. So the country could be at 9.5, but you as an individual could be at 15%, or you could be at 6%. But without looking at your budget and looking at what you were spending before inflation went up, and now as we are today, you won't understand the impact it's had to your spending. And without understanding that, you can't necessarily allocate accordingly. So I think it's very important, one, to get that visibility of your budget, but two, also to understand how the external factors are actually impacting you at home. Because I think all of us can say, like, yes, prices have gone up. We see that every day when we go buy our food, but do we know how much more we need to spend per month? I don't think people have good clarity on that yet.
I hear you. The director's already screaming in my ear, we're strapped for time and you have to cap it at that particular point. Obviously, there's a lot we could have talked about, but due to the constraints of time, we have to end at this point. Nonetheless, we appreciate you for making time and talking to us, at least priming us on what we need to know, regardless of inflation and high cost of living. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I had created First Time with Cynthia Wamboy to my extreme left, who's the marketing and community lead at KOA, as well as Delilah Kidano, who's the COO at KOA Waters Formed. Center of our conversation at this hour has been investment and savings. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya, from me and on behalf of the entire team. Asante sana. Till tomorrow, good morning.
Feel the excitement.